Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding to an era before eye exams, when blurry vision meant squinting at candle grease smears. Picture yourself hunched over sheepskin parchments, flame light dancing, as your eyes throb like overworked mules. Truth bomb. You'd last 3 minutes before tossing those expensive scrolls into the fire. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and current time. Let's map where insomniacs roam. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your fingers trace raised ink on a 12th century manuscript. Every letter swims like eels in murky water. Monastic scribes called this the devil's fog, a creeping haze blurring sacred texts into holy mush. Wax candles gutter in drafty scriptoriums, smoke stinging your eyes as deadlines loom. You rub eyelids raw, a common fix that only spreads soot deeper into lashes. Enter the lectorarius. That's medieval Latin for a professional book whisperer. These human audiobooks read aloud to red-eyed monks, compassionate but loud. Imagine trying to focus while some dude bellows psalms 3 feet from your ear. Historians still argue whether medieval headaches came more from eye strain or the nasal voices of overzealous lectors. Glassmakers had solutions, sort of. Early magnifiers were chunks of polished quartz called reading stones, heavy paperweights that smashed vellum if dropped. You'd press one against a page, watching words balloon into readability through curved crystal, but good luck hauling a 3-pound rock to bedtime reading sessions. Here's a gem from fringe history. Some healers swore ground emerald lenses cured eye infections. Picture scraping precious stones into eye powder because nothing says luxury medicine like wasting jewels on sketchy remedies. Meanwhile, common folk used onion juice compresses, a tearful solution for truly desperate times. Your back aches from hours copying manuscripts, spine curved like a question mark over ink pots. Abbey infirmaries overflowed with monks complaining of spiderweb vision, a term that's both poetic and deeply unsettling. Dietary fixes included carrot-heavy diets, proving medieval root veggies pulled double duty as early eye care. The real game changer, recognizing that eyeballs age like milk. Presbyopia hits around 40, rendering arm-length reading impossible unless you had giraffe genetics. Scholars folded manuscripts like origami, peering through thumb-sized gaps in crumpled pages. Efficiency rating -7. By midnight, your candle's down to a nub each flicker, taunting your fading sight. Mice scuttle past your desk. Even rodents pity your optical misfortune. Welcome to the pre-spectacle grind, where bad vision wasn't a solvable problem. Yet, you cradle a water-filled glass bowl stolen from the monastery kitchen. The curved base, magnifying parchment, lines through warped reality. Flame light swims in amber ripples across your thumb. This crude tool dates to 9th century Abbasid scholars there, reading stones, shaping light itself into service. Progress tastes like lukewarm sacramental wine, sipped from a stolen chalice. Your palm grows damp, holding the slippery sphere. These proto-lenses weighed nearly a pound. Artisans later fused thicker glass discs between polished rock crystal nature and craft wrestling toward clarity. Blistered fingers testify to early attempts. Glass blurs curse as uneven heating cracks entire batches, their furnaces stoked with olive wood and desperation. One misfire leaves your workshop floor glittering with emerald green shards from Egyptian soda ash. Historians still argue whether Venetian glassmakers or Egyptian opticians first suspended lenses in frames. The Vatican's ledger shows a 1286 payment for ovis de vitro ad legendum, reading stones in leather loops. But dig through Cairo's Geniza documents, you'll find 12th century complaints about eye crystals causing headaches. Here's where history gets weird. Some monks preferred gemstone lenses, despite the cost. Your abbey's treasurer once bartered 3 sheep for an emerald reading stone, its green hue allegedly preventing eye strain. Modern optometrists would gasp. But hey, medieval logic claimed rubies cured blood disorders. Why not magic rocks for vision? The real breakthrough comes through failure. A glass blower's flawed orb creates unexpected magnification. You squint through its bubbled surface, letters swelling like bread dough. Soon, every workshop stacks discs of crown glass and flint glass. Layer them just right, the blurry edges sharpen. Your callous ridges catch on a newly crafted magnifier, the handle whittled from antler. This one works better dry. Press it onto vellum, ink strokes separate like combed wool. For the first time, you read Horace without nose smudging the page. Some scribes resist, claiming God meant holy words to be felt through parchment indentations. Watchmakers adopt the tech next, their magnifying straps, letting tiny gears click into place. A Bristol craftsman boasted he could see time's eyelashes with his lens apparatus. You try examining a sundial repair, nearly singe your eyebrows off focusing sunlight. Trade caravans spread glass discs wrapped in lamb's wool, Constantinople to Cordoba. A Persian merchant tries selling you anti-Oshin spectacles that turn the moon into a pockmarked cheese wheel. His competitor hawks Viking-style lenses, forged from Icelandic volcanic glass that allegedly wards off sea monsters. You stick with the local smith's wares mostly. By midnight, your workshop table holds 2 finished lenses, each no thicker than a communion wafer. One flaw ruins the batch, a microscopic bubble warping Aristotle's ethics into nonsense. Shatter it against the wall, the crash echoes like misplaced ambition. Start over. Through warped glass, the future comes clearer, if not yet focused. Your knife carves ox bone into crescent moons. The first frames bite into the bridge of your nose. Boar leather straps chafe behind your ears as you adjust the twin quartz lenses. Suddenly, the candle's flame splits into 36 visible tongues instead of a golden blob. Historians credit Italian monks with this 13th century leap, though Byzantine manuscripts hint at earlier prototypes. Rabbit hide glue steams in your clay pot, its stench rivaling the tannery district. You dare not use fish bladder adhesive again. Last month's batch attracted cheese mites into the scriptorium. Fitting lenses requires surgical precision. If 13th century surgeons didn't believe pus was a healing fluid, here's the kicker. Some early adopters glued lenses directly to their eyebrows with beeswax. Your neighbor swears by menstrual blood as an adhesive, claims it harmonizes feminine energy with optical theory. You stick to leather loops. Literally, temple arms revolutionize wearability. No more forehead blisters from lead-weighted headbands. Your prototype frames use recycled parchment scrimshaw. Aristotle's face frowns from each hinge. Trade secret, drilling lens holes without shattering the glass involves singing Gregorian chants in G-sharp. Try explaining that to the guild inspector. Florence's guild records from 1301 list eyeglasses as taxable goods, one mainstream fact, surviving mold and ink blots. But dig deeper, a Lyon monastery's shopping list from 1283 mentions Vitrios ob oculis, paid for in turnips. Historians still argue whether Salvino d'Armati truly invented spectacles or just claimed credit after smelling profit. Your workshop, neighbor grinds lenses, while blindfolded guild rules forbid apprentices from memorizing curvature ratios. He's carved 63 notches into his workbench, each marking a failed attempt. Number 64 magnifies a flea's leg into a hairy scepter. Success tastes like sour ale and sawdust. The rich demand gemstone lenses despite the flaws. Your ruby-encrusted pear turns all text blood red. A Bolognese merchant insists sapphire lenses help him read the sea's moods. You don't mention the astigmatism from uneven gem cutting. Let ducats silence doubt. Leatherworkers develop hinged cases lined with lambs. Wool your lenses no longer roll into fireplace ashes. Carrying them feels like smuggling moonlight in a pouch. Critics grumble that enhanced vision invites vanity, as if squinting were holy. Worst commission, crafting spectacles for a noble who measured his pupillary distance with dead frogs. His frames required 17 adjustments, each fitting, accompanied by lute music to soothe the humors. You add a surcharge for artistic suffering. The true innovation isn't optical, it's psychological. Watching a scribe's hands stop trembling as text clarifies. That's alchemy. You secretively test improved lenses on aging monks, their gasps echoing through vaulted ceilings. 2 opticians get excommunicated for defying God's design. Milan's Archbishop later orders 3 pairs in silver. By Epiphany, your workshop hums with frame carvers and glass grinters. a symphony of whetstones and whispered Latin. Someone's son invents the first nose pad from stolen candle wax. Progress stumbles forward, one myopic, leather-clad step at a time. Heat bends crown glass over your manure-fueled furnace. The acrid smoke stings worse than onion tears. A 14th century Benedictine manuscript details this recipe. 3 parts Levantan sand, 1 part beech wood ash. You substitute Saxon river grit when crusades disrupt trade routes. The resulting bubbles scatter light like drunk fireflies. Linen-wrapped sand molds shape molten blobs into discs, each cooling for 3 full moons, according to guild law. Rumor claims glass, annealed in lunar light, cures headaches. Your cousin tried once. His moon lenses magnified everything upside down. Night owls loved them. Grinding pits your calloused thumb against spinning sandstone, clockwise circles for convex, counter for concave. An apprentice hums dies iri to maintain rhythm. Historians still argue whether guilds used coded hymn tempos to control curvature precision. You're just trying not to inhale powdered quartz. Sweat drips onto your leather apron as you polish, each lens demanding 4 days' labor. Wealthy clients expect Venetian clarity, but pay bohemian prices. Your secret: buffalo milk mixed with pumice. The lactose softens scratches better than water, though it attracts village cats like tiny, furry critics. Bone frames warp in summer humidity. You switch to bog oak, soaked in horse urine. The tannins harden wood better than linseed oil. Don't ask how you discovered this. Your workshop smells like a stable crossed with a tannery. Pensioners visit just for the aroma. Here's the shameless truth: half your imported Damascus glass is melted down beer bottles from Munich taverns. The green tint gets blamed on exotic mineral content. A bishop once praised his emerald lenses for revealing spectral virtues in sinners. You kept the payment, and the secret: brass nose bridges require 7 hammer strikes per hinge. Any fewer, and they pinch. Any more, and they snap. Your math-obsessed nephew calculates force ratios using Fibonacci numbers. It works, mostly. His prototype left a friar with matching nosebleeds. The guild's inspection day terrifies apprentices. Masters smash subpar lenses with a silver hammer. You've buried 32 failures beneath the walnut tree. Last spring, it grew leaves shaped like martyrs' eyes. Coincidence or divine critique of your craft? One customer trades a live goose for bifocals. Its honking becomes your alarm clock. Another demands lenses etched with psalm phrases. The letters scatter light into rainbow halos. His illuminated manuscripts now look literally holy. 5 more orders arrive by Easter. Forgotten innovation. Using tavern dice as calibration weights. The 6-dot side equals 2 deniers of pressure, perfect for adjusting temple arms. Gamblers lose their cubes. You gain precision tools. Drunkards unknowingly fund optical progress between ale spills. Midday break brings barley stew and eavesdropping, overhearing a glazier's joke about myopic stained glass saints, your retaliatory quip about lead-footed artisans, sparks a 4-day feud. Productivity plummets, laughter rises. The local priest takes notes for next Sunday's sermon on vanity. By Vespers, your latest commission emerges, a convex-concave pair for a merchant's failing eyes. He tests them on a cargo manifest and weeps at legible numbers. You pocket his silver and pretend not to notice snot dripping onto your workbench. Guild Rule 43. Never judge a client's epiphany. The final fire dies. Embers glow like distant cities on a lensmaker's map. You hide the good grindstones under rotten floorboards, protection against jealous competitors. Tomorrow brings another dawn of smoke, sweat, and stolen tavern dice. Someone's got to keep the world in focus, one warped beer bottle at a time. Your quill hovers over vellum, ink threatening to blob where Psalm 23 should bloom. Before the lenses, copying, yea, though I walk, looked like yeast dough I walk. The Abbey's new ocular aids perch on your nose, 2 polished quartz discs mounted in oak. Suddenly, minuscule script sharpens into legibility. No more guessing if that's a Latin Umacron or mouse droppings. Brother Matthias claims he transcribed Genesis in a week using them, though his Adam and Steve mix-up suggests haste over holiness. The abbot approved spectacles after a visiting bishop called them God's gift to strained piety. Mainstream chronicles ignore how monks now spot termites devouring priceless codices, lenses doubling as pest patrol gear. Dust motes swirl in your sunbeam, each particle visible for the first time. You flinch, realizing how many inhaled over decades. The scriptorium's air now seems less divine inspiration and more lung gravel. Vellum stretches tighter under your left hand. No more stabbing through pages with overzealous quills. Historians still argue whether spectacles quadrupled manuscript production, or just let scribes pretend to work while ogling stained glass colors. Your output's up, but so are sketches of the cat stalking the cloister. 5 Hail Marys per doodle. The lenses reveal a secret, those holy water stains on Augustine's letters. 8th century wine spills. You copy the purple-tinged confessionals verbatim, snickering into your sleeve. Dawn breaks cold breath, fogs the quartz. Warm the lenses with a candle's glow and crack. Abbot Gerald's spectacles now hide behind the sacristy curtain. His replacement pair uses your cousin's moonglass. It inverts text, but reveals hidden palimpsests. Suddenly Sophocles. Tragedies lurk under Gregory's sermons. Aristotelian logic winks from beneath communion rites. Noon mischief. Rearrange bovine gut pages so the bestiary's unicorn entry faces Brother Cyprian's desk. Watch him cross himself for an hour, lenses forcing belief in mythical creatures. Vespers bring a discovery. Flick lenses at just angles, and candle flames fracture into rainbows. The office of Compline becomes a prismatic light show, until Prior Anselm confiscates your heretical disco stones. Your newest lens trick, focusing sunlight to singe Gregorian chants into walnut panels. The abbot admires the miraculous burn marks, until realizing D minor scales don't equate to divine intervention. 3 days penance, copying dietary laws, spectacles forbidden. By Michaelmas, every scribe owns lenses, though Brother Paul's goat ate his first pair. The beast could suddenly read grazing boundaries, started a turf war with the monastery's sheep. You press lenses to the cloister window, counting distant crows on the tithe barn. Lazy bailiff swore only 3 plagued the crops. Your tally, 17. The abbot revokes his ale privileges. Your reward is extra ink. Candle stub dwindles. The flames dance, magnified into a flickering giant. You've stared so long that closing your eyes paints phantom manuscripts on eyelids. Even dreams now arrive in crisp Carolingian minuscule. A sneeze rockets your spectacles onto St. Jerome's biography. The impact chips a lens, but reveals the martyred bishop's name was originally Jerome, before a scribe's typo. Let future scholars debate that accident of ink and optics. The bell tolls nones. You switch to reading glasses for missives. Squint at a novice's love note hidden in Paul's epistles. Teenage hearts still find ways to misuse holy tools. Fold it into a salter blackmail material for slow Lenten weeks. Hand cramps set in, no cure yet for mortal flesh, but as sunset gilds the scriptorium, you copy 6 verses error-free. The achievement feels almost mundane. Progress seldom arrives with trumpets, just quartz, a steady hand, and the will to see clearly. The lecture hall's oak door groans. You slip inside where cigars smoke and body heat swirl beneath vaulted ceilings. 30 scholars cluster like crows. Each pair of spectacles reflects the same leather-bound Averroes text. Before lenses, this debate about Aristotle's metaphysics devolved into shouting over misread Greek particles. Now your annotated copy shows exactly where commentators inserted thus versus, therefore, tiny distinctions fueling decade-long feuds. That red-faced Dominican, he's been misquoting Aquinas for years. His lenses finally revealed his own marginal notes, contradicting the summa's central argument. Watch him sweat as the Franciscan across the table flips to page 73. Care to revisit your prima via analysis, brother. The room inhales, spectacles magnify schisms in real time. Your thumb traces a crack in the desk, centuries of students' carved names, curses, one crude unicorn. Through quartz discs, you spot 9th century graffiti beneath the varnish. Berenger was here, and still doesn't understand predestination. Mainstream histories rarely mention how lecture hall furniture became medieval Reddit threads. Heat radiates from the central brazier, a necessary evil against November chills. Unexpected perk. Melted wax drips onto your notes form perfect punctuation marks, nature's autocorrect. A friar 2 seats over plagiarized your wax comma innovation last week. You retaliated by borrowing his spectacles and accidentally leaving them near a melting candle. Now he squints through warped glass, arguing that Aristotle's unmoved mover behaves like molten beeswax. Debate crescendos as a young master student slams his fist, spectacles nearly bounce off his nose. If God's intellect is the act of understanding itself, then the room erupts. Someone hurls a sausage link stolen from lunch. You duck. It sails through Thomas Bradwardine's diagram of continuum mechanics. Hushed scandal ripples through the back row. A Benedictine nun smuggled in a contraband Avicenna manuscript. Male scholars pretend not to notice her whispered corrections. Through your lenses, you glimpse her margin note. Arab scholars solved this 200 years ago. Fools. Lecture breaks for wine. Sip sour, communion-grade stuff from a shared chalice. The student beside you swears he's discovered Aristotle's lost dialogue on lenses. You squint at his find. Obvious forgery. The Greek uses a Venetian abbreviation for quartz that didn't exist before 1310. He storms off, muttering about sophists. Returning, you spot the Chancellor's new spectacles, imported Venetian glass with gilded frames. They're purely ornamental. The lenses are plain window glass. Status symbols now outpace utility. Gold rims trump actual vision correction. 3 students already petitioned to sell their cloaks for knockoffs. Dusk stains the stained glass windows. Lecturers light candles with exaggerated care. One uses his lenses to focus sunlight onto tinder, showboating Ptolemaic optics. He singes his sleeve minor martyrdom for the sake of pedagogy. A visiting Oxford scholar unfolds a star chart, claims spectacles let him decode celestial movements previously reserved for unblinking youthful eyes. The old guard scoffs until he predicts next week's lunar eclipse down to the minute. Your mind flashes to abbey scripts about monks who feared eclipses as divine wrath. Progress flickers in the shadows. Late night study reveals an oddity. Your borrowed copy of Boethius has tiny holes pricked above certain letters. Hold it to candlelight, and Abbott's Cellar, 3rd cask from the left, appears in code. Scholastic thirst takes literal forms. Historians still argue whether spectacles birthed the 14th century's intellectual boom, or merely let caffeine-deprived academics think they were smarter. Either way, parchment rustles louder these days, annotations breeding counter-annotations in exponential schisms. The bell tower tolls midnight, debate rages on. You pocket spectacles, leaving the chaos behind. Cobblestones glint under moonlight as your tired eyes spot something new. The night watchman's lantern, refracted through dew on a spiderweb, becomes a floating constellation. For the first time in human history, someone pauses to appreciate that exact alignment of glass, water, and light. The scholastic revolution isn't just in books, it's rewiring how minds perceive the mundane. Your bunk creaks as you collapse, spectacles case, digging into your ribs. Dreams resurrect the day's arguments in hyperclarity. Even sleep offers no escape from Aquina's unmoved mover, now starring as a brooding figure with literal glass eyes. Dawn sneaks through warped window panes. Another hour until matins. You're already scribbling a rebuttal to Buridan's donkey paradox, margin space dwindling under assault. Somewhere, a lens grinder hammers a new pair of frames, unaware he's arming the next salvo in humanity's endless war against blurry truths. Smoke curls from Bergen's forge as you adjust your lens. Brass gears, no bigger than fingernails, snap into place under magnification. 14th century horology thrives on this cruel irony. Tiny timepieces demand vision sharper than any natural eye. Your latest commission, a pocket sundial with astrological signs, requires engraving Capricorn's horns at microscopic scales. Without the quartz loop strapped to your forehead, you'd mistake the grooves for mere scratches. Across the workshop, a glassblower inflates a molten blob. His cheeks bulge like bellows. Through your corrective lenses, the bubble's thickness becomes a navigable landscape. He's crafting hourglass flasks so uniform. Merchants swear they measure minutes identically from Paris to Aleppo. Historians later pin this precision to the rise of medieval global trade. But forget the glassblower's true muse. His mistress threatened to leave if he didn't standardize her egg timer. Sparks fly as a locksmith files an iron key. Each notch corresponds to castle tumblers, visible only through his wife's borrowed spectacles. He hummingbird nods while working, compensating for the frame's tendency to slide. The Contarini family vault in Venice reportedly uses his jiggle-cut keys, though no one mentions his chronic neck spasms. You wipe sweat, it smears the lens. Easy to forget these workshops birthed the first compound microscopes centuries early. That flea glaring at you from the workbench. Through 3 stacked corrective lenses, it's a bristled monster waving antennae. A fringe theorem suggests plague doctors briefly used such setups to study humor imbalances in insect legs. Spoiler: they missed the actual plague vectors by several anatomical leagues. Rivermen deliver a walnut crate inside. Bohemian garnets glint like frozen blood. Gem cutters will shape them into circular saws for marble work. Once someone invents dust masks, for now they grind stone in open courtyards. Lungs be damned. Your neighbor Hans claims the pink tinge in Rouen Cathedral's pillars isn't quarry mineralogy, just decades of gem cutter phlegm. You discreetly avoid touching the walls during mass. A commotion erupts at the tinker's stall. His new adjustable spectacles with wire arms just toppled a ale jug. The tavern keeper howls about ruined ledgers. Scholars will later call these temple spectacles a milestone, but today's consensus is clumsy crap. Lunch brings dubious stew, and a revelation your cheese knife's serrations mirror the gear teeth you've been filing. You test it on pork rind, slices thin enough to read through. The butcher eyes you strangely, but accepts the improved deli technique. Centuries later, supermarkets will repackage this as prosciutto at triple the price. Back to the sundial, in grave cancer's claws now. A slip sends the urine skittering. Through loop distortion, the blemish becomes a dragon eating its tail. Clients pay extra for such zodiacal anomalies, though honestly, you just mask errors with mythology, dreading the next task, painting miniatures on a bishop's pocket watch lid. Ultramarine pigment costs more than your rent. One shaky hand, and you're repenting in the confessional for squandering lapis lazuli. Monks whisper that Senini's Il Libro dell'Arte, actually began as a chapel graffiti rant against stingy patrons. Night falls, lanterns magnified by glass flasks cast starburst shadows. Apprentices play solar death ray games, focusing moonlight on mice. Spoiler, it fails. But the attempts seed ideas for future telescopes. Not that these kids care, their real passion. Using concave lenses to make the tavern wench's nose look huge. Stumbling home, you pass the linen weaver's quarter, their new magnified looms. Let them spin threads finer than monarch wings. Unintended consequence, fashionable tunics now disintegrate in rainstorms. The Duke's recent transparency reform speech was actually a wardrobe malfunction missed by his aging optician. Your palate beckons. But first, a midnight experiment. Grind one flawless lens from stolen cathedral window glass. Peer through it at the moon. Craters swim into focus. Too bad church doctrine insists the lunar surface is perfectly smooth. You bury the lens under floorboards, heart pounding. Historians still argue whether medieval artisans grasped heliocentrism or just feared becoming bonfire kindling. Dawn finds you hunched over a goldsmith's monocular. Its twin lenses align to reveal solder seems invisible to the naked eye. Jewelers adopt these tools within weeks, clamping weary eyelids open with clothespins to maintain focus. The resulting red-eye look becomes a bizarre status symbol. Nobles rub onion juice on lids to mimic the bloodshot aesthetic as cathedral bells toll sext, a revelation. Your lens array can project THE Chinese letter S bustling market upside down onto the wall. Kids toss coins to see their faces warped on plaster. You don't realize it yet, but you've just recreated camera obscura principles that'll shape Renaissance art. For now, it's just a way to earn beer money between commissions. The bishop's pocket watch lid mocks you still blank. Time to channel earlier dragon tail ingenuity. Paint the creation of Adam with both God and Adam wearing spectacles. Clients love anachronisms if you call them prophetic visions. Your landlord accepts art as rent, meaning heaven just bought you 3 more months, avoiding Beggar's Row. Sunset bleeds through your workshops, bullseye window, the distorted beam lands on a recipe book. Magnified letters reveal Monk Margaret's secret cider formula scribbled in the margin. 4 parts rotten apples, 2 parts well water, 1 part desperation. You'll try it tonight, either genius or dysentery. Innovation's a dice roll. Lying awake later, cider bubbling in your gut, you realize something. Those clothespin-eyed jewelers, the dragon-carved sundials, even the failed solar mouse roast, they're threads in a tapestry, only visible in hindsight. Tonight's indigestion will pass. The real revolution, you're correcting vision, not just for scholars, but for the hands reshaping the material world. Camel lurch beneath you, each sway jostles leather cases stuffed with Venetian glass. 5 lenses shattered yesterday crossing the Apennines. Now you brace for the Sahara's sun glare. Sand creeps into everything, including the ledger-wear spectacles. 12 pair bleeds into scorpion-based ink. Rumor says desert scribes grind the arachnids for pitch-black script. But you suspect that's just traders justifying exorbitant prices. Aleppo's gates rise at dawn, merchants swarm your caravan. A perfumer sniffs your lenses, confuses them for crystallized bergamot. Negotiations stall until you perch round frames on his hooked nose. His gasp echoes through the bazaar, dates on distant stalls snap into crisp focus. He buys 3 pairs using musk pods as currency, and 1 dried gecko of disputed value. Venetian guilds would recoil seeing their secret crafts here. Damascene metalsmiths already hammer silver frames inlaid with lapis. Their innovation, a tiny hinge copied from folding prayer stands. Local glassblowers smirk, turned away from Murano's furnaces for years. They now melt down mosque lamps for lenses. Historians will credit Marco Polo with bridging east and west. But it's really these rejected artisans swapping techniques under market awnings. Monsoon winds delay your departure for weeks. You watch Rajput traders test lenses by reading palm leaf scrolls upside down. Their preferred method balance spectacles on a mongoose's head. If the animal stays calm, the optics pass inspection. You pocket 12 ruined frames before realizing mongooses hate metalwork. The journey home stinks of vinegar-soaked linen, your insurance against mold, devouring unsold spectacles. A Bulgarian mercenary guards your remaining stock, his payment. Wire frames bent into fishing hooks. At night, he whispers that Optina River pike bite best on Italian brass. You don't inquire further. Malta's harbors bring respite and a shock. Local monks wear your Venetian lenses backwards. They peer through the reverse side during Mass, claiming inverted scripture reveals God's true message. Their abbot demonstrates Leviticus becomes successive. Surprisingly, congregation numbers soar. You quietly add mirrored Cyrillic labels to future shipments. Pisa's docks swarm with loan sharks. They inspect your ledger through monocles soldered from melted down ducats. One eyes the gecko entry and barks laughter. We'll call it collateral if it comes alive. The joke dies when the creature skitters up his tunic, his interest-free extension, granted with eerie haste. Back in Venice, the glassmakers' guild finds you for technological treason. Their spies saw Damascus's imitation frames. The penalty: craft 60 lenses blindfolded. Output ranges from useless to accidentally innovative. 3 ground concave instead of convex. Future astronomers will fight over these flawed discs. Rain soaks your warehouse. The scent of warped leather mixes with guilt. But then, Genoese sailors arrive seeking lenses to repair their astrolabes. They pay in salted cod, which you trade to Hans the Butcher for his new, ultra-thin, cured ham. The circle of commerce closes, a greasy, satisfying loop. Constantinople's traders send word, a request for fire lenses that can ignite Ottoman ships. You plead ignorance while shipping 10 magnifying glasses to a Cypriot blacksmith. His return letter includes sketchy diagrams of a parabolic collector and a postscript begging for cataracts treatment. You recommend boiled dandelions. He'll later die in a tragic, sunlight-accelerated olive oil fire. Ship manifests reveal the truth. Spectacles become contraband as fast as currency. Scottish raiders intercept a crate, replace lenses with tartan-painted quartz. French nobles demand discreet viewing aids for spying on paramours. Birth of the lorgnette. Historians still argue whether the 1384 Milanese eyeglass embargo caused more diplomatic headaches than migraines. Your final ledger entry smells of sheepskin and regret. Profit margins thin as monocles, but under miscellaneous, a curious note. The Scorpion Inks buyer commissioned 10 liquid-filled lenses from Baghdad glass. They'll reach Nuremberg by Easter, crude prototypes for the first compound microscope. You add a doodle your camel, now retired, wearing spectacles. Retirement plan: chewing theological diagrams in a Bolognese stable. Rain leaks through your shop's thatched roof. It pools around a crate labeled Devil's Eyes in crude charcoal. The insult still drips fresh. Outside, a veiled woman spits 3 times as she passes your door. Old Balkan custom against cursed objects. You wipe rainwater off lenses with your sleeve, a wasted effort since mold already blooms in the hinge sockets. Word spreads faster than the Black Plague. By market day, villagers clutch garlic necklaces near your stall. They hiss warnings about seeing beyond God's design. One farmer dares approach, pokes a spectacle case with his pitchfork. His caution falters when he accidentally hooks the wire frames. For a breath, you both stare at his impaled accessory. Then he flees, pitchfork rattling down the lane like a treasonous chime. Mainstream history forgets this part. Pope Clement IV himself owned 3 pairs. But try explaining that to the toothless crone hurling rotten turnips. She scores a direct hit on your sample lenses. The crowd gasps as magnified vegetable pulp oozes down the display. Midnight brings a knocking you'd rather ignore. 2 friars demand entry, their hoods damp with more than rain. The bishop requires light adjustments, says the ticklish one, giggling as you polish his smudged lenses. The stern brother confiscates your convex grinding wheel as evidence of sorcery. They leave you with a sack of goat urine purported to cleanse optical heresy. You pour it into the gutter, where it improves the street's existing aroma. 57 leagues north, a band takes root. Town criers outlaw spectacles as Satan's monocles, punishable by 12 lashes and a dunking. Enforcement proves tricky. The sheriff's spectacles slip off during the first flogging. He accidentally strikes the blacksmith's prized pig. Historians still argue whether the ordinances aimed to curb diabolic influence or simply suppress literate peasants. Your remaining stock gathers dust until a cloaked figure barges in during a thunderstorm. Lightning flashes reveal the mayor's wife and her notorious myopia. She thrusts a chicken carcass at you, payment in poultry. You watch her red stolen poetry behind fogged lenses, her vice, now clear as the ink she devours. With the bird tucked underarm, you ponder supper, until recognizing the mayor's initials branded on its foot. Oddly, demand thrives underground. Minstrels buy lenses to magnify lute strings, then compose ballads mocking the bands. Ode to a nearsighted mistress becomes a tavern favorite. Drunkards use frames to focus on dice rolls, swearing they see the 4 of hearts before losing anyway. You pivot your marketing, advertise spectacles as dice elucidators with a free Talmudic lucky charm. The Council of 10 finally intervenes, not to repeal bans, but tax all devilry adjacent commerce. You slash prices to move inventory. Bad move. Now even confirmed sinners haggle. I'll give 2 squirrel pelts and a half-eaten mince pie for the bishop's model. Reinvention arrives via an unexpected ally, the turnip-hurling crone's granddaughter. She drags a flour sack to your counter, spilling 43 pairs of spectacles looted from confession booths. Clean M, she demands, slapping down a jar of suspicious honey. By dawn, you've bartered refurbished lenses for 7 eggs and directions to the sheriff's secret brandy cache. Sunrise finds you adjusting frames on a nervous nun's face. Her scriptoriums, psalms blur into pseudo-Latin gibberish. She crosses herself thrice when text clarifies, then bolts with the glasses still perched on her wimple. Let the record show even holy women risk damnation for crisp marginalia. Winter brings desperation and innovation. You melt down unsold frames to cast fishing hooks, inspired by that Bulgarian mercenary's lunacy. The blacksmith praises the alloy's strength until his trout catch starts sporting miniature monocles. News spreads. By Lent, every 3rd fish glints with corrective lenses, a subaquatic rebellion against surface world dogma. Your workshop reeks of fish guts and progress. Lent's monocled trout spawned unexpected demand. Sailors now barter smoked cod for aquatic grade frames, that cling to sweaty noses. You carve temple arms from whale baleen, flexible enough to survive North Sea gales. Fashion collides with function when a pregnant duchess demands gold-plated hinges to match my birthing chalice. The real breakthrough comes from a drunkard's misfortune. He staggers in nose-dripping blood after his spectacles flew into a beehive. Like to see them, bloody drones read this. He slurs, waving a crushed honeycomb. Its hexagonal pattern inspires your new spring-loaded hinges. Now riders can gallop without losing their lenses or dignity. Mainstream records credit 18th century Parisians with temple arms. Ignore 12 earlier patents rusting in your desk. That Genoese luthier's 1432 sketch proves otherwise. His ear hooks for fiddlers went unnoticed until the Habsburgs needed spyglass stabilizers. Your apprentice trips over the truth, literally. His dropped spectacles skitter into a loom's shuttle mechanism. The resulting zigzag hinge gets baptized in sheep's blood, standard luck ritual. Guild elders declare it heretical. Black market weavers smuggle the design to Antwerp inside quilted codpieces. Quirky fact alert: Cistercian monks once trained ferrets to retrieve fallen spectacles. The practice died when Brother Alcuin's optical weasel gnawed through a priceless psalter. You test the theory with a toothless badger. It urinates on your astrolabe instead. Leatherworkers revolutionize comfort with cured eel skin, nose pads that mold to even the bulbous schnozzles of Flemish alewives. Critics decry the scales as serpent residue. Courtiers counter by bedazzling theirs with pulverized saint bones. Because holiness trumps herpetology, historians still argue whether riveted hinges spread through battlefield necessity or Venetian vanity. The Armorers Guild manifesto mentions spectacle repairs alongside breastplate orders. Meanwhile, portraiture reveals doges wearing lens chains a century before scholars acknowledge them. Your crowning shame: crafting heart-shaped frames for a courtesan's blind macaw. The bird pecks at its new accessory, a tiny tragedy of monocular myopia. When it later gnaws through a cardinal's treaty, you plead ignorance while pocketing the resulting comedy fee. Winter tests your designs. A woodsman returns with frost-fused frames, birch sap adhesive failed at 30 below. You invent boar bristle ear grips until a territorial hog raids your supply. The solution arrives via Mongolian traders. Yak wool sleeves that double as earmuffs. Spring thaw reveals society's split. Peasants lash spectacles to hats with pig intestine. Nobles commission silver mesh face catchers from Toledo. You mediate disputes between opticians and haberdashers, once tossing a feathered toque into the Seine to prove a point. It floated. The hatmaker still sends threatening limericks. By May Day, even the spectacled trout migrate north, their tiny lenses flashing through murky depths. You watch children pelt each other with daisies, their perfect vision a testament to 7 generations of squinting ancestors. The world snaps into focus, one rivet, one hinge, one absurd adaptation at a time. Your fingers brush vellum, pages thin as moth wings, each word sharp under wireframe lenses. The abbey's pre-dawn hush thrums with unseen rebellion. Quills scratch secrets meant for eyes alone. Gone are the days of mumbling texts aloud. Your spectacles make silence a sanctuary. A novice gasps as Augustine's Confessions leaps off the page, no priestly baritone mangling the meaning. Mainstream archives note Benedictine monasteries, hoarded reading stones like gold. Until spectacles let scribes work well past 40. But here's the kicker. Their illuminated manuscripts began hiding bawdy doodles in capital letters. You squint at Psalm 23's ornate S. Is that a shepherd or a satyr? Quirky rumor time. A Venetian merchant's wife sewed corrective lenses into her wimple. She read banned sonnets during Mass, until a sneeze sent glass shards into the sacramental wine. You test the method with linen and fish glue 2 Hail Marys later, your forehead's branded with a perfect circle. Silent reading reshapes power. Watch the abbot's nostrils flare as you parse Aristotle without his droning commentary. Marginalia becomes your playground doodles of goggle-eyed bishops, snarky Latin puns about chamber pots. When a dropped prayer book spills your notes, you blame mice, then invent history's first bookmark to seal the lie. Historians still argue whether spectacles spurred silent reading or evolving text layouts demanded better vision. One parchment merchant's ledger tells both tales. His 1392 entry lists, eye crystals sold beside indented paragraphs. You conduct your own test, hiding lemon juice messages in boiled milk. The brewer deciphers them secretly, his spectacles fogging with each illicit word. Young acolytes adapt fastest. They pass palm-sized psalters with folded lenses, pretending piety while reading Ovid's Ars Amatoria. A cheeky marginal note survives. If Brother Elias asks, this is Ezekiel. Your own guilty pleasure, dipping into Arab star charts when you should be transcribing Genesis. The world tilts, Scripture's flat earth curving into celestial spheres. Wax drips on your sleeve as night becomes territory to reclaim. Moonlight glints off lenses. You're no longer chained to daylight or communal recitation. The real heresy happens in stolen hours, annotating Boethius with questions that earn 30 lashes. Your quill hovers over. If God sees all, why invent spectacles? Best save that for the privy's draft pile. Even devotion mutates. A donated book of hours bears pinpricks in the vellum, read by touch during forbidden fasts. You replicate it with pierced parables, fingertips tracing braille-like dots under the workbench. When the sub-prior confiscates your tools, you retaliate, carving lens prescriptions into communion wafers. Let them chew on Augustine's astigmatism. The scriptorium's new hire stumbles into legend. His spectacles magnify so intensely, He spots scribal errors in century-old charters. The abbot declares it witchcraft until the duke's paymasters request error-free land deeds. Now the kid gets extra venison and a permanent squint from reading charcoal inventories. By Michaelmas, even lay servants trade turnips for used spectacles. The scullery maid reads almanacs upside down while scrubbing her lenses smeared with lye. You catch the stable boy mouthing herbal remedies to horses, their wide eyes reflecting his borrowed frames. Literacy leaks through keyholes, pooling in places Latin never touched. Winter brings the ultimate test, a fugitive French Bible hidden in a sausage casing. You decode Galatians between mealtimes, Greece preserving the ink better than any archivum. When the Inquisition sniffs near, the pages get fried with onions and devoured. Truth becomes digestion, each translated verse burning hotter than pepper. Spring exposes the irony. Your eyes weaken from years of perfect vision. The once miraculous lenses, now as essential as bad habits. A visiting lord swaps your specs for a pardon. His trophy cabinet already displays a Waldensian's mangled spectacles. You craft replacements from hawk's leg bands, sight shaped by rebellion's endless loop. Dawn finds you reading your own confiscated journals, seized for tone-deaf interpretations of veal recipes. Between the lines, a subversive truth lingers. Every secret reader becomes an author waiting to happen. The quill trembles, then dips to write what spectacles alone can't reveal. Your new hawk-band spectacles dig into temple flesh. Each stargazing hour leaves red crescents. The abbey roof becomes your observatory, toes curling over icy tiles as constellations sharpen. That blurry cluster Leonidas once called God's beard resolves into distinct stars, 3 pinpoint lights like pricked vellum. Mainstream texts credit monastic astronomers with early celestial maps, but none mention stolen kitchen lenses. You've repurposed a mutton fat lamp into a rotating armillary sphere, its rings casting time-lapsed shadows on the chapter house wall. Tonight brings crisper sight. Saturn's faint rings emerge as a smudged halo. The prior would declare it heresy, so you sketch it as angels' hula hoops in the margins. Here's the kicker. An old bestiary claims owl eyes contain natural lenses. You dissect a roadkill barn owl at matins. Its pebble-sized oculars magnify ants into monsters. The sacristan catches you and screams of witchcraft until you prove it by reading distant gravestones. Now he begs for holy owl-glass spectacles and accidentally sets his stole on fire testing them. Historians still argue whether Galileo knew about these makeshift stargazing tricks. His telescope sits centuries away, but your wine flask experiments bend light into crescent moons. A traveling tinker swaps you iron ore for a smashed lens, muttering about German craftsmen stacking glass like pancakes. You layer 4 fractured circles. Suddenly, the abbey's weather-vane eagle looms large enough to count feathers. Daylight reveals new hunger. You squint at herb gardens until parsley leaves show veins like rivers on a map. A novice screams when you identify his lice through a lens. His shorn scalp becomes gossip fodder for weeks. The real discovery. Magnified dew droplets hold entire upside-down landscapes, the world in miniature, quivering on a spider web. Your illicit tools multiply. A dented chalice focuses sunlight into a scorching beam, perfect for charring initials into choir stalls. The bell ringer borrows your gear. Soon he's spotting approaching pilgrims an hour early. Tithe revenues spike thanks to his divinely enhanced vision. Though his description of a three-eyed traveler causes panic. Cracks in authority widen. When the abbot bans lenses after sundown, you invent coded star charts, stellar positions, mark banned texts in the library. Ursa Major points to Averroes. Orion's belt aligns with Ovid's more scandalous verses. A visiting bishop nearly trips over your makeshift astrolabe. You claim it's a mechanical rosary for counting penitent steps. Monastic rivals adapt. Brother Enoch uses a lentil lens to spy on confessionals, swapping absolution secrets for extra lentil soup. You retaliate by crafting a distortion lens. His next illuminated bee looks suspiciously like a bare-bottomed monk. The subprior confiscates it, then keeps the lens for reading tiny relic inventories. Rumors attract outsiders. A Flemish painter pays 3 chickens to study your magnified brush techniques. His diptych Mary now has individual eyelashes. You hoard the eggs, only to blow one into a glass mold. The failed lens becomes a paperweight until someone uses it to flatten communion wafers into heretically crisp rectangles. Your final experiment backfires. Combining a horsehair crossbow with lensed arrows, you try projecting mass readings onto the barn wall. The first shot shatters a stained glass saint. The noise brings 7 furious monks. Punishment involves copying psalms on barley grains. Your magnified script so small, they suspect angelic intervention. Winter halts rooftop vigils, but frost reveals new wonders. Morning ice on a discarded lens bends light into rainbows. You map colors onto musical notes. A tone-deaf friar turns your diagrams into chants, accidentally summoning every village cat with high-pitched infrapurple frequencies. By Lent, even the abbot capitulates. His new spectacles let him spot sloppy stitches on altar cloths. Until he peers too close during Mass, the congregation gasps as he recoils from a mite, big as a mastiff, on the Eucharist cloth. That night, cellar rats find prescription lenses nailed to their tunnels, a warning against hubris. Your legacy hides in plain sight. Cobblers mimic your scratch-resistant lenses using fish bladder glaze. Sailors trade cod lenses, claiming they prevent seasickness. When a bishop's envoy arrives investigating optical witchcraft, you gift him demon-free spectacles, their arms carved with enough saints to make scrutiny blasphemous. Spring brings celestial confirmation. A merchant's prism shows starlight splitting into colors no psalm describes, indigo like midnight ink, red as cardinal's blood. You swallow the proof, a linen note hidden in a raisin cake. Centuries later, scholars will debate whether medieval optics birthed empirical science. But tonight, the stars hum louder than any choir. Your hawkbone frames snap during a moonlit fall. Glass shards glitter like captured stardust. No matter, the stable boy's new spectacles already magnify spider silk into possible thread. Enlightenment isn't a single lens. It's the million fractures that let light bleed through. The bishop's envoy peers through your gift. Saints carved into the temples outnumber his lingering suspicions. His nails tap the frames, testing for demonic whispers in the polished bone. Approval comes with conditions. Approved users must recite 3 psalms while holding lenses to their hearts. The abbot adds his own rule. Scriptorium keys stay tucked in his belt, dangling like forbidden fruit over starving scribes. You grind lenses under armed guard now. Each morning begins with inspecting your tools for heresy. A novice smuggles crushed quartz in his bread loaf. You bake it into glass while brothers chant sext. Forget coffee. Nothing sharpens focus like fearing excommunication over a wonky bifocal. Mainstream records claim monasteries, standardized vision tests, read a psalm backwards through smoke. The real test, identifying which apostle's relic spun inside a locked monstrance during Mass. Fail and your spectacles get melted into chalices for more obedient eyes. Here's the twist. Carmelite nuns near Bruges allegedly blessed lenses with holy water and pigeon blood. Their ledgers list avian sanctification as critical for clarity. You try it secretly. The mixture leaves streaks resembling Christ's face. If you squint sideways after midnight vespers, historians still argue whether optical restrictions aimed to control knowledge or protect souls from seeing too much. Your experience suggests both. 4 monks went mad after magnifying communion wafers, claimed they saw the bread's memories of wheat fields. Production quotas strangle progress. The abbot demands 20 pairs by Easter, but confiscates every 10th set as penance for ambition. You hide lenses in hollowed psalters until Brother Thaddeus reads Song of Songs with sudden, blush-inducing detail. The clandestine demands surge. A noblewoman swaps her silver girdle for a devotional lens to inspect her husband's love letters. You engrave tiny crosses on the frame, bless it with a stolen saint's knucklebone. She returns weeks later, apparently spotting lipstick smudges invisible to the naked eye. Disaster strikes during Lent. A visiting cardinal borrows your spectacles, spots a phallus-shaped watermark in the altar cloth. His outrage triggers an Inquisition. You spend 3 nights confessing every lens recipient. Solution: carve AMD. Add Majorum Dei Gloriam into every hinge. Church approves, never realizing your pun on a monk's device. Black markets flourish. Groundskeepers trade caterpillar silk cleaning cloths for spy lenses. Sewn into hood hems for covert use, you spot novices squinting at saucy carvings in the cloister, their giggles echoing through confession screens. Salvation arrives via bureaucracy. The Vatican declares spectacles kosher. If containing at least 2 saintly relics, you repurpose moth-eaten vestments. Thread from Augustine's robe lines every nose pad. Production triples, though users sniffle from ancient dust trapped in the fibers. Irony blooms, your workshop now supplies bishops who once preached against unnatural sight. One complains his lenses amplify heretical graffiti. Demands you invent ones that blur unapproved texts. You oblige smearing pork fat on the glass to create holy censorship. Final test, a papal bull blesses spectacles, provided they're removed during scripture readings. Enforcement proves impossible. Half the conclave forgets and misquotes Isaiah. You grin, high-fiving irritable copyists under the doctrine-draped table. Legacy solidifies as compromise. Monasteries retain optical monopolies, but peasants barter chicken eggs for St. Lucy's eye water, misguided drops of wine, and crushed rose quartz. Your original hawk-bone frames, displayed beside a splinter of the true cross, slightly magnified to show wormholes some claim spell. Amen. Your wire frames press cold against the bridge of your nose, buried under 3 layers of linen veil, trimmed with modest lead beads. The merchant swore nobody would notice, but your mother-in-law's hawk-like squint suggests otherwise. You cough into your sleeve, palming the spectacles into your embroidery basket beside adulterated indigo thread. Medieval etiquette demands women avert their gaze, not sharpen it. Yet here you sit, decrypting a smuggled troubadour's poem, while ostensibly mending your husband's heraldic tabard. The rhyme scheme snaps into focus. Unlike the blurry sermon you endured at Mass yesterday, mainstream records claim noblewomen used sewing lenses, tiny magnifiers pinned to tapestries. The reality, you've sewn corrective lenses into your wimple's hem, aligning them with eye slits when the solar cycles past noon. Doctors warned this causes womb rot, but so does everything from reading to riding side saddle. Here's a trick. Slide your hairpin under the left temple arm to adjust focus. Learned that from the widowed countess, who secretly annotates herbal manuscripts. Her late husband's will specified all his eyeglasses be buried with him. She swapped them for tinted glass the night before the funeral. Domestic espionage thrives. Servants whisper which apothecaries grind lenses weak enough for female fragility. You've developed a code requesting rosewater for blurry miasma means a +2, 25 diopter prescription. One merchant offers anti-fog goose grease, a precursor to modern lens wipes marketed to husbands as chastity wax. Historians still bicker whether literate women influenced optical design. or just repurposed male tools. Your experience says both. You've retooled a Eucharistic lens case into a wearable chatelaine. Its filigree roses disguising hinge mechanisms. The local goldsmith admires your ingenuity while refusing to engrave your initials on the frame. Society polices your eyeballs through fashion. Hoods with restrictive eye holes force proper lowered lids. Your solution: line the hood with reflective mica, angling sunlight onto dim manuscripts. It's like reading by disco ball, if disco balls caused migraines and occasional facial burns. Religious backlash takes odd forms. A traveling friar condemns spectacles as Eve's curiosity reborn, arguing Adam wouldn't have eaten the apple if he'd seen the worm inside. You counter by stitching corrective lenses into his donated altar cloth, watching him squint through his next misogynistic sermon. Midwives become optical allies. They prescribe headaches requiring darkened lenses, then slip you treatises on childbirth illustrated with cervix diagrams. Your monthly migraine coincides with the Abbasis' forbidden Aristotle translations arriving in wine barrels. Marriage complicates everything. Your husband owns 4 pairs of spectacles, yet mocks your vanity crystals. Last week, you swapped his lenses. Now he thinks the pigs are reciting Boethius. He'll request stronger optics soon, and the village lens grinder happens to be your cousin. Death reveals secrets. When Lady Marguerite's tomb is opened centuries later, archaeologists find decomposed velvet hiding silver-framed lenses. X-rays show her skull's dented nasal bridge, decades of covert use, etched into bone. Her psalter nearby bears microscopic notes critiquing Augustine's views on menstruation. You innovate under constraint. That overdyed kirtle. Its peplum hides a hinged lens for market price checks. The children's toy windmill, adjustable focus knobs masquerade as axle pegs. Even your rosary beads have magnifying centers, illuminating miniature devotional texts, and your sister's saucy gossip scrolls. Nighttime brings freedom. Alone in your solar, you tilt a lens to moonlight and examine a flea's leg. Science whispers through imperfect glass, every hair a marvel, every joint a cathedral. Dawn finds you red-eyed, but clutching notes that'll later be dismissed as hysterical diagrams. The ultimate test arrives. Your daughter squints at her primer. You slide encoded instructions to the glassblower, commissioning decorative baubles, matching her pupillary distance. Her wedding trousseau will include the latest Italian spring hinges, nestled between virginity belts and dutifully unfinished samplers. By century's end, your hidden lenses outnumber the Rhenish wine casks in storage. Granddaughters giggle over your prudish concealment tactics while wearing jeweled monocles at court. Progress tastes bittersweet, like rosehip preserves laced with the vinegar of outdated necessity. Midnight oil pools around your manuscript. A candle's wavering flame casts more doubt than light. physician warned you'd go blind reading Galen by such glow. But according to his theories, swallowing crushed emeralds improves eyesight. You've tried it twice. 3, if you count that unfortunate incident with the jade hairpin. Aristotle's visual fire theory lingers like cheap incense. Scholars insist light streams from your eyes to grasp objects, like ghostly fingers brushing the world. You test this, staring at the wall until shapes blur. All you've achieved is attracting moths, mistaking your peepers for lanterns. Mainstream medicine prescribes baths in cow bile for cloudy vision, though you suspect it mainly cures clean skin. Last week at the apothecary, you overheard a friar recommend ground owl bones mixed with goat milk. His pitch: night creatures understand darkness best. Here's a truth: medieval opticians double as amateur philosophers. Your lens grinder claims light is liquid, pouring through glass like honey through sieves. He demonstrates by melting church window shards into a prism. The bishop never noticed the missing St. Lucia pane, though pilgrims reported dimmer miracles. Historians still argue whether the fire from eyes theory delayed optical advances or just gave poets better metaphors. You've penned both love sonnets and complaints about Astora Digli Intranati's lecture fees. Turns out Milton's Darkness Visible wasn't just artistic license. He owned 3 pairs of spectacles. Alchemical texts hint at wilder ideas. One marginalia suggests sunlight is God's dandruff, which explains why monks go bald. You laugh until recalling that abbey where they rub walnut oil on scalps to retain divine glow. Your own recipe for vision tinctures includes fermented cabbage, an experiment that cleared your sinuses, if not your sight. The church's stance wobbles like a novice on stilts. Augustine condemned prying optics, while Thomas Aquinas commissioned magnifying lenses to study angelic hierarchy manuscripts. You've seen his personal specs, thick as tavern mugs, with iron frames hinged like Judgment Day scales. Rural remedies persist. A traveling bone setter advises strapping glowworms to your temples, claiming their bioluminescence aligns humors. You prefer the Venetian method, holding blue glass over candles to cool the light. Bonus: it dyes your parchment the color of drowned sailors. Optical metaphors infect theology. The local deacon preaches that saints see through God's own spectacles, crystalline lenses polished by cherub wings. You've calculated the refractive index required. It would make every martyr appear 7 times more haloed. Domestic life bends light to its will. Your daughter accidentally lines her dollhouse with silver foil. Suddenly, her miniature study outshines the real one. When her brother tries melting lead soldiers for mirrors, you've never missed your childhood spectacles more. A Moorish trader shares Ibn al-Haytham's experiments. Light travels into eyes, not outward. This explains why staring at the sun hurts, and why your cat's pupils widen like blacksmith bellows. You replicate his camera obscura using a lentil sack and a pinhole, projecting the courtyard falconry onto castle walls. The Baroness mistakes it for witchcraft. The Baron commissions erotic shadow plays, sleep deprivation, births odd habits. You've started dreaming in focal planes, each blurry face demanding optical correction. Last night, you adjusted a nightmare demon's spectacles mid-roar, waking to find your hands twisting an empty candle holder. Gerard of Cremona's translation, frenzy hits close. His team rendered an Arabic text recommending lettuce juice for eye strain right after your kitchen garden bolted to seed. Coincidence, the fermented version makes decent salad and a terrible ink solvent. Archaeologists will later find your annotated psalter, its margins debating whether angels need corrective lenses beneath a scribble about Psalm 119. 19. I am a stranger on earth, you've added, so is my astigmatism. Dawn approaches, candle reduced to a waxy puddle. Your latest lens experiment sits abandoned, a curved crystal dripping with resin. It might magnify or just combust in sunlight. For now, darkness feels like a woolen cloak draped over weary eyes. The theories of light can wait till prime. Sunrise bleeds through the cathedral's rose window, splitting into jewel-toned shafts that land at your feet. Chartres, 12th century glass, gets all the praise, but you're kneeling in a lesser chapel where saints glow amber and cobalt. Their leaded outlines resemble your spectacles, frames, geometric divisions between clarity and chaos. A novice once asked if holy figures needed corrective lenses. You laughed until spotting Saint Attilia, patroness of the blind, holding what looks suspiciously like wire-rimmed glasses in her stained pane. Glaziers work miracles here. Molten silica spun into saintly visages. You watch them hoist a new panel showing Saint Lucy clutching her gouged eyes on a plate. The lead cames creak like old bones as they solder her martyrdom into place. Workshop gossip claims Lucy's actual eyeballs rest in a Venetian reliquary, preserved with honey and hubris. You've petitioned to grind lenses from that glass, but the abbot thinks it's tacky. Historians still argue whether circular window tracery inspired early spectacle frames or vice versa. You've seen cathedral diagrams where the rose windows petals mirror lens grinding diagrams. The glazier-in-chief insists it's divine symmetry. His apprentices bet it's because both inventions require squinting. Divine light gets filtered 3 ways here: through colored panes, through your quartz lenses, through the deacon's questionable interpretations. He preaches that red glass represents Christ's blood, though everyone knows it's just cobalt mixed with powdered rubies from India. You test his theory by swapping your spectacles for red-tinted ones. Suddenly, the baptismal font resembles a giant wine cask. Pilgrims rub their eyes under the west window, its last judgment seen heavy on the hell quadrant. A farmer claims the dam's faces blur less if you're farsighted. You diplomatically avoid mentioning his myopic squint or how his wife bought blessed lenses from a relic seller's cart. They're just tinted river glass. But hey, at least the frames are oak. The real magic happens at Compline, sunset, firing the windows from behind like God's own lantern show. Shadows stretch saints across flagstones, elongating Matthew's lion symbol into something feline and feral. Your spectacles help spot a hidden detail. Judas's silver coins bear the face of the current pope. The glaziers deny everything. The bishop calls it an Easter egg for the keen-eyed. Monks whisper of a secret panel in the apse, St. Clare holding a miniature telescope centuries before Galileo. You spend primed nones searching, only to find a janitor's doodle of a walrus. Turn the page. Reliquaries pose an optical challenge. How to venerate desiccated thumbs through thick glass. You press your spectacles to St. Mark's knuckle case, multiplying holy bone fragments into a kaleidoscope of martyrdom. A nun mistakes your scrutiny for piety. You don't correct her. Stained glass recipes sound like failed alchemy, manganese for violet, copper flakes for ruby, ground unicorn horn for translucency. Just kidding about the last one. It's actually ground goat horn. Same difference. The real unicorn is the glazier who carved his lover's face into a quarrelant pane. She's been immortalized as a particularly smug angel. You trace her features with a dusting rag, smudging the nose, restoring the smirk. Love persists where light bends, sunset fades. Workmen douse the kilns as bats replace stained glass apostles in the rafters. You remove your spectacles. The world softens into acceptable obscurity. Tomorrow brings a new panel, new light, new debates about whether St. Catherine needed prism correction for all that heavenly reading. For now, the only clarity you need is the dark walk home. Your nose recalls the pinch, those early spectacles clinging like jealous vipers to your bridge. No wonder monks preferred handheld lenses, at least dropping a reading stone, only bruised toes, not dignity. Now imagine arms curling behind your ears like iron ivy. The hinges squeak, newborn technology, still working out its cadence, but they hold. Tinkers red raw the human face in brass and tension springs. You watch a leather-clad artisan shape temple pieces over candle heat, each curve calibrated for scribes' hunched neck or sailors' salt-crusted ears. Their workshop smells of hot wax and impatience. One claims his design can survive a gale force sneeze. You make a mental note not to test that. Historians still argue whether folding arms first served bookkeepers or barnacle scraping deckhands. Naval manifests show invoices for stormproof seeing aids alongside salted cod barrels. But guild records credit a nearsighted nun who kept losing her specs during vespers. The truth, probably both. Necessity mothered this invention in 7 ports at once. Here's a nugget they don't teach Early hinges used whale baleen before metal dominated. Picture it, your spectacles held together by the same keratin that filters krill. Fancy flexing a bowhead whale's throat fringe on your face didn't last long. Sweat dissolves sea mammal parts faster than piety. The real breakthrough came with screw-adjusted nose pads, those tiny brass caterpillars you twist to fit. Finally, a bridge between fat-browed philosophers and needle-nosed scribes. You demonstrate on a merchant's sunburned proboscis. He gasps as the world snaps into focus sans headache. His coin pouch follows. Not everyone celebrates. Blacksmiths grumble about spectacles stealing their nose-ring trade until jewelers start embedding sapphires in frames. Now goldsmiths and glass cutters share benches and grudges. You've seen a duchess wear lenses just to flaunt emerald sidearms that drip with pearls. Her vision's perfect, her vanity's better. Observe the sailor's model temple arms terminate in sharp hooks that bite behind ears. No wave can dislodge them, though removing them requires the finesse of a lovesick octopus. The tinker winks, tells you they're called mermaid grabbers in port towns. You don't ask why. Scribes get bendable copper arms that hug their cowls. No more losing specs mid-psalm. A copyist shows you his page-turner modification, a tiny spike on the hinge to pierce parchment corners. The abbot calls it sacrilege, then orders 6 pairs. Wanna hear a trade secret? The best spring steel comes from dismantled crossbows, failed siege weapons, reborn as focus tools. Peace through lenscraft, sort of. You test a pair made from a decapitated arbalist. They sit askew, but hold like a mother's hand. Churches initially banned the new designs, too reminiscent of Moses' horns in frescoes. A crafty bishop ended the debate by commissioning foldable pince-nez with tiny crosses on the hinges. Now they're holier than reliquary dust. Midday sun glints off a tinker's latest abomination, spectacles with adjustable magnification via sliding lenses. He claims you can spot sinners a league away. You try them. Suddenly a fly on the cathedral spire has identifiable facial hair. The future's bright and alarmingly detailed. Carpenters mimic the hinge design for collapsing altars. Poets write odes to the gentle click of closing arms. You pocket a defective pair, the screws loose, the gaze imperfect. Sometimes blur has its uses, like avoiding eye contact with the deacon, who still owes you for 3 pairs. Dusk finds you adjusting a blacksmith's specs, soot-streaked and stubborn. His forge glows in your peripheral vision, each spark a tiny star briefly born. The hinges finally yield, and so does he, muttering thanks through a grin like split iron. Progress, one grudging craftsman at a time. The Guildhall door creaks like a guilty conscience. You step onto sawdust strewn to muffle secrets. Masters assess newcomers with sideways glances, while apprentices stir molten glass in iron ladles. Here, knowledge sticks to ribs thicker than the mutton stew simmering in the corner. Your initiation begins with wine, a bitter draught swallowed under 12 watching eyes. The oath scorches your tongue. As God sharpens light, my hands serve the craft, my silence guards its flame. They don't mention the penalty for betrayal, but the scorched effigy in the courtyard suggests fires involved. Blindfolded grinding becomes your new prayer. Fingers memorize imperfections in glass blanks, each rotation counted like rosary beads. A master barks corrections. 3 turns east. 2 counterclockwise, you're polishing heresy into that lens. Historians still argue whether the blindfolds prevented espionage or symbolized spiritual focus. Either way, your thumbnails, now permanently grooved from testing curvature, trade secrets hide in plain sight. The glazier's ledger lists 7 barrels of Rhine sand, but the real recipe whispers through guild sign language. 1 flicked wrist means add crushed flint, 2 taps on the furnace, stir with hawthorn wood. You misread a gesture once and produced lenses that magnified everything green. The master called it innovation, the clients called it witchcraft. Here's a tale too odd for textbooks. Guilds used blue glass beads as currency in taverns. Want a pint? A lens paper fragment buys you ale, but overcharge, and the innkeeper accidentally serves you fisheye soup. Rumor claims a master once paid his daughter's dowry in uncut spectacles. The groom's family still complains about the astigmatism in their bloodline. Espionage paranoia births creative defenses. Visitors endure truth tests, handling red-hot glass without flinching. Fail, and you're a spy. Succeed, and you're a spy with impressive calluses. One merchant swears he saw a competitor's apprentice swallow a lens mold to smuggle it out. The resulting extraction became Guildhall legend and a potent laxative. Watch a master craft, Venetian tears, those delicate glass threads said to fracture if touched by dishonest hands. You suspect they just hire clumsy scribes to spread the myth. Still, nobles pay triple for these virtue-verified spectacles. Their servants quietly glue the fragments back together every Tuesday. The vault's iron door weighs more than your childhood home. Inside lie parchment scraps guarded like papal bulls, each bearing a single lens formula. A candle wick trims the tallest stack, ready to incinerate all secrets at the first sign of invasion. You wonder if enemies would attack faster, knowing they're one spark from optical oblivion. Apprenticeship's cruelest joke, the fool's lens, a perfect glass circle with 0 magnification. Newcomers grind it for weeks before learning the truth. Some rage, others weep. You keep yours as a paperweight and a reminder that clarity often hides in plain sight. Witness the annual feast of Saint Eligius, patron saint of goldsmiths, and through creative guild lobbying, eyeglass makers, they parade a relic claimed to be his spectacles, though carbon dating suggests they're from the 18th century Venetian deli owner who invented ravioli. Devotion tastes better with cheese filling. Breach a rule, and punishment arrives via the dark box, a leather case containing your flawed lenses. Wearing them in public brands you as inept. One rebellious apprentice ground a lens that inverted vision. He now navigates Canterbury Cathedral upside down, and oddly content. The guild's power wanes as alchemists discover leaded crystal, but not before minting a final masterpiece. Behold the dragonfire lens, a ruby-red glass that casts prismatic shadows, commissioned by a paranoid king who believed sunbeams carried treasonous messages. It ignited his tapestries during the first test. You exit the guild hall at dusk, palm still stinging from the loyalty oath's blood seal. Behind you, a new apprentice fumbles his blindfold. The master's cane cracks like ice on a frozen river. Some traditions, like bad eyesight, never go out of style. The guild hall's candle smoke still clings to your robes when the first printed page hits your desk, a smeary psalm that reeks of walnut ink. Scribes around you scoff at its uneven lines. Bastard letters, mutters Brother Anselm, whose illuminated capitals once took 3 months to gild. Now his quill hovers over vellum like a hawk who's forgotten how to dive. Printers' apprentices haunt your workshop begging for lenses. Their metal type shrinks text to ant trails, monks squint, merchants curse, bishops demand larger fonts. Gutenberg's press might birthed a book revolution, but it also birthed a generation of headache-rubbing scholars. You wonder if the man ever apologized to an optician. Watch a typesetter scrutinize letter blocks through your latest spectacles. He licks ink off his thumb and proclaims, "The E's are drunk." Historians still argue whether blurred medieval texts stemmed from poor press alignment or just everyone needing glasses. The truth, probably both, like blaming rain for a leaky roof. Here's a fact too strange for optics manuals. Early printers lined their composing sticks with salvaged spectacle frames. The logic: if it holds lenses, it'll hold type. Spoiler, it didn't. Lead alloy melts faster than piety in a brothel, warping both letters and morals. Witness the rise of silent reading rooms, those eerie spaces where pages rustle like mouse laughter. Gone are the town criers, the alehouse chroniclers, the grandmothers reciting romances by hearth light. Knowledge now slips through your eyes instead of your ears, assuming you've got the right lenses. A printer offers you shares in his press for lifetime lens discounts. You decline partly on principle, mostly because his investors are 3 goats and a suspiciously chatty raven. His next pamphlet claims spectacles cause moral decay. The woodcut illustrations so blurry, you can't even tell who's sinning. Ever tried reading a chained library book without glasses? The chains grant 6 inches of mobility, just enough to smell the mildew, but not decode the text. Scholars develop a hunched shuffle, noses grazing pages like bloodhounds tracking heresy. Monks start calling it the stoop of enlightenment to feel better about their spines. Paper shortages birth creative piracy. Your neighbor stuffs mattress with draft pamphlets, both insulating his bed and memorizing political tracts through osmosis. It works until a rogue comma lodges in his back. Historians still debate whether his yelp during Mass was sacrilege or just poor lumbar support. The scriptorium's final commission, a handwritten Bible to remind humanity of true artistry. It takes 4 years, same time the local press prints 600 vernacular ones. When the abbot unveils the manuscript, a visiting merchant mistakes it for wallpaper. Nobody corrects him. Duck into St. Paul's Cross, where fiery sermons once drew thousands. Now, it's just a sweaty man mumbling Fladejarkut. Volcano, facts from a crumpled broadsheet. 2 listeners snore. 1 heckler yells louder. The speaker lowers his voice further out of spite. Your crowning shame. Crafting lector specs for a nobleman who pretends to read at parties. The lenses are clear glass, pure vanity. He'll die decades later reciting fake Aristotle quotes. But damn if he didn't look profound doing it. Printers adopt your magnifiers for quality checks and promptly ruin everything. Suddenly, every broadsheet's crammed with micro-sized libels. It's not slander if you need a glass to read it, claims one bold typesetter. The defamation lawsuit requires 3 interpreters and a stronger lens. Winter brings the ultimate humiliation. Scribes huddled around printed almanacs because parchment freezes. Brother Anselm traces a woodcut saint with numbed fingers, tears splashing the cheap paper. They got his halo all oblong, he croaks. You hand him your spectacles. He breaks them in a week. The silent reading revolution has casualties. Town storytellers now perform to dwindling crowds, mostly stray cats and toddlers mid-tantrum. Their final ballad laments, "O heedless age, who traded song for squinting." The rhyme schemes uneven, so's progress. Find the last communal tale spinner in your city, a one-legged sailor shouting sea monster myths at the docks. Sailors toss him lenses instead of coins. He grinds them into fishing weights. Mutual disrespect keeps tradition alive. You exit the scriptorium at twilight, spectacles smudged with ink and regret. Somewhere, a press slams down like a judge's gavel. Somewhere else, a grandmother whispers a tale to firelight. Both carry truth. Neither needs perfect vision. Your fingers trace the diary's warped pages. Each headache's throb fossilized in ink blots. February's entry complains of devils dancing on every capital letter. March wonders if God punishes literacy with blurred psalms. By April, a sketch of wire-frame lenses and the shaky Latin caption, "A necessary vanity." The abbot confiscates it twice, returns it smudged with sacramental wine. Focus your eyes on Scripture, he growls, not your sinful pride in seeing. His own spectacles, thick as cathedral glass, perch, forgotten, on a dusty psalter. Monastic hypocrisy smells like beeswax and sour grapes. Here's a fact surviving in 3 abbey ledgers. Myopic monks consumed 9 times more candle wax than their peers. Records show frantic orders for purified tallow and emergency rushlights. One novice's disciplinary note cites indecent squinting during matins. Prior's comment, "Eyes to heaven, brother, not to your lap." Discover the quirk no chronicle mentions. Your diary hides pressed violets between pages about eye strain, their purple petals faded to whispers. Did you crush them under lenses for magnification, or just miss the fragrance of something not made of vellum? Historians still argue whether medieval myopics experienced the world as more intimate, or just perpetually out of reach. Witness your first lens grinding lesson. The workshop master blindfolds you, claims touch must guide true craftsmanship. Your thumb slips on the polishing wheel. 3 paternosters wasted, he snaps as blood dots the glass. Later, you realize he's been sightless since birth. His lenses correct others' vision, while his own remains a sealed gospel. The infirmarian prescribes pigeon bile eye drops. When that worsens the burning, he suggests staring at emerald gemstones. Green soothes humors, he insists, pocketing your last silver coin. You trade his alchemy for a street peddler's rosemary-infused wine. The cure works, or maybe you just stop caring about the pain. Overhear 2 friars debating your spectacles' morality. They reveal the world God hid through Adam's sin, argues one. The other counters, nay, they fix creation's flaws like Christ mended souls. You scribble their words, then cross them out. Some debates taste better left unswallowed. Your breakthrough comes during a hailstorm. Trapped in the library, you position lenses back to back. Suddenly, the Psalter's mites march in alarming detail. Panic births invention. By Vespers, you've rigged a hinged frame with pilgrim badge wire. The abbot's disapproval could curdle milk, but his envy curdles faster. Discover the ledger's dark joke. The monastery paid 12 florins for bronze reliquary repairs. The same week your lens budget got denied. Guess which saint's finger bones sat in a jeweler's case, and which monk secretly hawked his only cloak for eyewear. Salvation comes cheaper when you're the only bidder. Easter brings a revelation literally. You read Revelation 21:18 without stopping once. The description of heaven's crystal walls blurs anyway, but from tears, not myopia. A visiting bishop eyes your spectacles like Satan's own monocle. He'll commission a gold-rimmed pair by Michaelmas. Summer's heat warps your parchment. Ink bleeds into Rorschach visions. July's diary entry. Is this a psalm or a spider's web? August answers with a pressed fly corpse, mid-leg twitch preserved in oxgall. You label it Brother Ambrosius attempts penmanship. Humor survives where piety falters. The ultimate humiliation arrives as papal legates. Their entourage includes a lens grinder from Bologna, charlatan, or genius, depending on who's buying. He proclaims your monastery's air too moist for proper optics. Never mind that he's standing in a rain-soaked cloister. You sell him a jar of blessed desert sand for triple its weight in silver. Holiness always upcharges. Your final entry, dated 3 days before the coughing sickness takes you, sketches a pigeon perched on a lectern. Speech bubble caught in secula seculorum. Below it, your last joke. If visions of paradise require glasses, mine are packed. The ink trails off, not with an ellipsis, but a dried poppy seed. Novices discover your diary in a wall niche centuries later. They'll laugh at the pressed bugs and wine stains. Miss the silent plea beneath, that blurring the lines between devotion and doubt might bring not clarity, but peace. The diary goes unread until a graduate student's migraine medication makes the scrawl legible. Some revelations need pharmaceuticals instead of faith. Fog ghosts across your lenses in this Baltic castle. Every exhale risks coating glass with frost. Nobles hear where their blurred vision like heraldry. My father saw the world thus, declares a baron, squinting at his own coat of arms hung upside down. You resist pointing it out. Patronages, safer than accuracy. Northern trade ledgers reveal the conflict's scale. Lübeck's glass imports dropped 60% after the Kalmar Union's collapse. Merchants whisper of Venetian ships turning back, their cargo holds full of seeing stones. Now ballast. Historians later blame tariffs. You blame 3 generations of kings who'd rather trip over tapestries than admit they need help. Discover the workaround festering in royal kitchens. Servants peer into water-filled glass bowls like fortune tellers, reading floating recipe scrolls through liquid magnification. It works until a scullion drinks the reading juice to cure boils. Turns out boiled down vellum gives vicious indigestion. Watch a duke's heir practice recognizing guests. By shoe tap patterns his vision's so poor, he once bowed to a broom. His tutor praises the noble tradition of perceptive listening. Translation: we'd rather invest in ear trumpets than admit lenses exist. The court musician starts adding heel-click motifs to every galliard just to help. Witness the smuggling. A Riga merchant slips you Baltic amber lenses in a smoked herring crate. Wipe them with lard, he advises. Customs inspectors hate touching greasy relics. You pocket them only to find the lenses are just polished fish scales. The perfect crime. Here's a quirk carved into Oslo's old stock exchange ledger. 7 barrels of Polish frost-resistant glass, ordered for a royal wedding. Delivery notes reveal lumpy sea salt instead. Margin scribble explains. Better profit. They won't know until the snow melts. Join a feast where spectacle wearers get seated by the dung-fired heating vents. Smoke stings your eyes. A countess leans close. Modern contraptions need modern trials, she coughs. Her own spectacles, hidden behind leaded window brooches, catch the firelight. Progress dresses as jewelry here. Hear the rumors. They say Danzig alchemists brew anti-fog elixirs from crushed moth wings. An apothecary sells you a vial smelling of pickled onions. Turns out union disputes had glassworkers sabotage shipments. The real elixir was vodka in goat bladders. You get drunk and lose 2 pairs of spectacles in a snowdrift. Touch the frost-rimmed contract that started it all, King Eric's ban on unnatural optical devices from southern effeminate states. The quill strokes quiver like a myopic scribe's hand. No one mentions his secret spectacles, or the goldsmith executed for engraving them onto imperial coins. Taste the irony in a Malmör tavern. Sailors play dice using magnified tankard bottoms to cheat. Traditional Nordic honesty. They insist when caught. The barkeep swaps their ale with vinegar, a different kind of clarity. Unearth the trend haunting Uppsala's text fragments. Aristocrats commissioning deliberately blurry portraits. Soft edges suggest contemplative depth, claims one patron. You wonder if the painter just needed spectacles. Historians still argue whether Nordic resistance stemmed from practicality or terror. That clear vision might reveal their shrinking empires. Your stolen amber lenses finally arrive, smuggled inside a hymn book's carved-out pages. They magnify beautifully and reek of pickled herring for a decade. You'll take olfactory offense over frost-bitten fingers. Courtiers mock your crutch for weak eyes while bumping into pillar after pillar. Their bruises bloom like grudging roses. When the queen finally adopts spectacles, imported covertly via Greenland, they're declared traditional Inuit snow-gazing aids. Progress folds itself into whispers here and reshapes the world in frost-edged silence. Your trowel scrapes against something brittle, not pottery shards or rusted nails. Bone. Centuries of soil fall away to reveal 2 hollow circles connected by a fragile bridge. A monk's spectacles or a child's toy. Peasant graves nearby hold water-stained psalters. No, this was someone's lifeline to letters. Museum floodlights bleach the relic as you catalog it. 17th century conservators left clues. Candle wax drips on the left temple, teeth marks where some desperate scholar chewed the frames. Donor cards from the Victorian era mislabel it as Viking ocular torture device. You imagine some Edwardian curator puffing cigar, smoke over the glass, his own monocle glinting as he invents better histories. The acid test comes. Authentic bone frames fluoresce blue under UV light, medieval collagen reacting to modernity's glare. Yours glows like drowned moonlight. Mainstream textbooks will now add a new subsection. Your colleagues yawn through the discovery until someone notices etchings. Magnification reveals minuscule initials. GH, oblique reference to Gerhardus Heilbrunn, 12th century scribe, who transcribed Augustinian texts with famously precise marginalia. Turns out precision had help. Here's the quirk that appends 4 conferences. Ultraviolet also exposes Victorian beer stains. Turns out those early curators held relic tasting parties, rubbing artifacts on tankard rims to absorb scholarly essence. The practice stopped when someone sipped plague residue. You debate licking your find for science. Peer review vetoes this. Watch modern replication attempts. A grad student 3D prints resin copies they snap under the weight of their own irony. Blacksmiths try wrought iron recreations until historians remind them most frames used whalebone or boiled leather. Final success comes from a taxidermist using ethically sourced deer antlers. The resulting spectacles sit lopsided on every nose they test, authentically medieval discomfort. Tourists crowd the exhibit hoping for selfie-worthy clarity. They leave disappointed. Where's the AR overlay? Demands a teenager. You resist explaining that 800 years ago, this was the augmented reality. The security cameras catch a nun praying before the display, cross drawn in the air. Turns out Gerhardus Heilbrunn was up for sainthood, then defrocked for heretical optical practices. Handle the forgery sent to your lab, expertly aged frames with LCD lenses cycling through cathedral stained glass patterns. The culprit, a TikTok influencer's viral challenge. You award them points for using period-correct rabbit glue. The Vatican requests the fake for educational purposes. You don't ask why. Read the speculative fiction scribbled in the guest book. In 2375, archaeologists will find my blue light glasses and declare them ritual mourning veils. Beneath it, a child's drawing of dinosaurs wearing spectacles, closest thing to peer-reviewed research this display gets. Witness the cleaning dilemma. Centuries of skin oils coat the nose pads, a biochemical map of countless wearers. Preserve humanity's DNA smudges, or sterilize history into bland safety. Conservation ethics committees nearly fistfight over cotton swabs. You compromise by sampling only the left side. Future generations can clone half a medieval librarian. Track the legacy in pop culture, that zombie drama using your find as a mystic seeing device. The hero rubs bone frames to detect ghosts and instantly needs a contact lens prescription. You sue for defamation. The settlement buys better climate controls for the exhibit. Smell the irony during the gala opening. Museum trustees toast with champagne flutes, shaped like 9th century reading stones. Speeches praise, bringing history into focus, while the actual relics remain safely unfocused behind glare-proof glass. A donor mistakes your replica display for a bespoke cocktail tray. You let him. Hear the interns bet. How long until someone tries to wear the relic? Security footage later shows a janitor popping them on while dusting. Made my migraines worse, he reports. Historians still argue whether bone frames were common or just stopgap solutions. But your throbbing Temperex headset suggests some answers are universal. The last entry in Gerhardus's rediscovered diary gnaws at you. Lord, forgive these eyes that prefer manuscripts to sunsets. You adjust your own glasses, plastic anti-glare, progress, and watch dusk paint the museum windows. The bone spectacles glow faintly in their case. Still hungry for words, even the dead barely grasped. Your thumb traces the hinge of your blue light glasses, plastic where antler once curved. Those 12th century lenses started as sand heated in Levantan furnaces. Now they're polymer pellets from a Guangdong factory. Laser eye clinics billboard 2020 vision in seconds. But forget who proved curved glass could reshape reality. Without Brother Gerhardt's bone-end quartz contraption, retinal mapping would still be star charts and guesswork. Wince at your phone's glow, the same light that once streamed through cathedral windows onto scribes. Screen time arguments rage on podcasts, as if medieval parents didn't scold kids for rotting their eyes with manuscripts. Technology changes, the panic stays pre-washed and ready to wear. Your ophthalmologist's chart has Arabic letters now, progress. But the 6th line still taunts like a Latin psalm. Here's the mainstream nugget textbook committees approved. Salvino Darmate's 1284 patent gets all the credit. But dig through Venetian Guild records. You'll find 17 tradesmen fined for vision crystal crimes decades earlier. Innovation's always a group project where someone steals the plaque. The real heroes, monks who smuggled lens recipes in hymnal margins, medieval whistleblowers with a side hustle, now the quirky bit they'll whisper at conferences. Some Renaissance nobles ground dried spectacles into love potions. Circular logic, romance requires clear vision. A Medici inventory lists glass of seeing between aphrodisiacs and arsenic, dangerous combo. Historians still argue whether monks used early lenses for staring at stars, or just the abbey treasurer's account books. Follow the money, or in this case, the blurred numbers. Drive past suburban LASIK centers, their neon signs buzzing like monastic rushlights. The surgeons laser mirrors Arab opticians, light-bending diagrams. Same principles, less bloodletting. You miss the medieval term for myopia, book blight. Now it's digital eye strain. 8 centuries later, we're still burning our retinas for knowledge. Somewhere, Gerhardus chuckles through his beard, glimpse the corporate pilgrimage, tech CEOs buying medieval lens replicas as innovation talismans. Silicon Valley boards display warped glass discs next to IPO charts. Funny, those CEOs forget spectacles spread through illiterate tradesmen first. Vision upgrades bubbled up from the bottom, not trickled down from some ivory tower. Or in this case, a scriptorium tower. Test the augmented reality glasses marketed as 21st century enlightenment. The tutorial asks you to fix a virtual water wheel, same hydraulic principles the Benedictines mastered. Circular histories, a bratty Ouroboros. When the headset malfunctions, you instinctively wipe invisible smudges, exactly like Venetian lens grinders taught their apprentices. Muscle memory outlives photons. Read the alarming study. Gen Z's myopia rates skyrocket like medieval scribes who worked dawn to dusk. Optometrists prescribe outdoor time, nature's original focal length. You imagine herds of teenagers grazing in parks, squinting at phones under oak trees. Plus saw change, plus c'est la même réforme, des yeux. Find the conspiracy theory when Googling Medicare lens coverage. A fringe blog claims optometry guilds still control frame designs, just swapped parchment contracts for offshore patents. Comments section devolves into Illuminati references and coupon codes. You delete your browsing history, but not before downloading a PDF titled Big Lens Exposé. For research, obviously, visit the mall's cheap eyewear kiosk. Its neon frames scream temporary rebellion. The clerk claims blue light coating blocks bad vibes. You don't mention that 9th century monks believed sapphire lenses warded off demons. Sales tactics upgrade slower than lens coatings. Swipe your card, modern indulgences fund medieval continuities. Watch dusk blur streetlights through your windshield, those halos identical to candle haze around Gerhardt's desk. Medical journals call it starburst aberration. Mystics called it divine radiance. Either way, you're pulling over until your pupils adjust. Some road hazards stay timeless, even with anti-glare coatings. Plug your phone into a wireless charger, same as reattaching a monk's lantern chain. Both gestures whisper, more light, more time. The screen's glow intensifies, illuminating nothing Gerhardt hasn't already lamented in ink. Progress just means repeating old mistakes at higher resolutions. Check your watch, the tick of microgears, descendant from spectacle hinges. A Rolex at Basel World and a sundial in Cluny Abbey share DNA, humanity's obsession with segmenting light. You miss water clocks until realizing your smartwatch counts lunar cycles. Tradition slithers through USB ports. Spill coffee on your keyboard, sacrificing liquid to the tech gods. It dries into a stain resembling Gerhardt's marginalia doodles. 800 years later, humans still leave accidental art where concentration breaks. Future archaeologists will classify coffee rings as devotional artifacts, right beside the USB drives. Fall asleep to a documentary about Mars rovers, their lenses polished using techniques from 14th century German grinders. Terra incognita becomes terra Instagrammed. You dream of a monk adjusting perseverance's mast cam, muttering Latin gripes about Martian dust. Wake with your glasses askew, indentations mirroring the nose pads on Gerhardt's relic. The museum case haunts your nightstand. Petrified sleep lines, says your partner, rolling over. You don't correct them. Some legacies live in dents before dawn. Your nose still bears the indents from last night's askew frames. Petite imprints mirroring luxuries wait on medieval faces. Blink at your gold-rimmed readers, designer hieroglyphs shouting, I can afford clarity. 7 centuries back, that same declaration came through walrus ivory frames crusted with lapis. peasants. They cupped water in hollow glass spheres, makeshift magnifiers warping texts into rippled ghosts. Imagine reading Chaucer through a fishbowl, then getting splashed by an unimpressed cat. Here's the brass tacks. Henry VII's 1541 eyeglass registry taxed silver frames higher than iron, medieval vat for vanity. Wealthy nobles flaunted ground crystal lenses despite 20/20 vision, pure optical jewelry. One inventory lists spectacles of garnet for Sunday disport, next to silk gloves. Historians still argue whether early lens access widened literacy or just gave the elite sharper tools to guard privilege. Follow the ledger dust. Education rarely trickles down without pressure. Now the oddball nugget, Tudor England's fishbowl spectacles trend. Resourceful villagers suspended water-filled glass spheres on yarn-crude magnifiers for market ledgers. Records show 3 bakers prosecuted for water fraud after substituting urine. Desperate times breed inventive solutions. You grimace at your Brita filter. Lucky modern hydration doesn't double as reading aid. Watch a startup founder on LinkedIn vintage monocle glued to his jacket lapel. Disruptive vision. He declares, unaware 13th century Genoese merchants wore lens jewelry to signal global connections. Status symbols recycle like seasonal fashion. His TED Talk neglects the Florentine lens smugglers who died keeping glass recipes secret. True OG disruptors. Peel the price tag off drugstore readers. The adhesive leaves a gummy residue. Medieval apothecaries sold vision tinctures alongside lenses, snail ash ointments promising to brighten ocular humors. Reviews were mixed. One scribe's diary complains of mayfly wings sticking to his salve-coated specs. Ancient Yelp reviews would have been brutal. Your optometrist's chart has a new line. Screen proximity, 10th circle of hell, or manageable nuisance. Medievals feared book blight. You get memos about digital myopia. Treatments evolved from leaching temples to blue light filters. Same anxiety, fancier packaging. Notice the waiting room's medieval manuscript screensaver. Some intern's dark joke. Archaeologists found a French peasant's grave with a glass bowl still clutched in bone fingers, buried with their only tool for reading rent contracts. Imagine facing eternity, prepared to argue land deeds. Meanwhile, nobles, spectacles molded in jeweled caskets, earthly clarity sacrificed for glittering darkness. A museum docent whispers that Catherine de Medici's lost spectacles had diamond-dusted arms. Accounts note she wore them during beheadings. Focus improved her applause timing. Dubious, but you file it under macabre productivity hacks. Your own glasses slide off during Netflix binges, less executioner chic, more couch spud practical. Spot a TikTok trend, teens wearing non-prescription blue lights for the aesthetic. Their crisply vacant stares mirror Queen Elizabeth's empty spectacles in the Folger portraits. Vanity lenses. now filtered for Gen Z. Comments scream, "It's giving wise. It's giving scholarly smize." 3 million likes for seeing nothing clearer. Unearth old family photos, your great-grandfather's, wire frames identical to 1920s models, which copied 1720s designs, which aped 16th century rivet styles, fashions just a cover band for utility. You slip on blue lights, becoming another verse in the centuries-long remix. Modern optometrists debate corrective overload. Are we forcing eyes into artificial precision? Medieval monks asked the same. One illuminated manuscript warns, "Beware lenses that sharpen the world but blur the soul." You adjust your nose pads, plastic divots deepening. The question lingers, unanswered as your screen autolocks. You rub your smudged lenses, every fingerprint a reminder that genius rarely works alone. Museums love crediting Salvino Darmate for inventing spectacles in 1284. But his breakthrough was just one ripple in a Mediterranean-wide wave. Think of it as medieval open source, centuries of anonymous tinkerers, passing tweaks like contraband recipes. That monk who carved lenses from quartz guts, or the guildsman who leaked glass formulas to his mistress, real history's messier than patent ledgers. Here's the polished legend. Venetian archives list Darmate's epitaph boasting, "Inventor of spectacles." Here's the grit. 13 other towns claim the same title. A Parisian apothecary's ledger from 1263 mentions vision crystals on nose stands. 2 decades before Salvino's birth, historians still argue whether the Florentine Guild fire of 1285 destroyed rival designs or just burned a tax-dodging workshop. Capitalism's always been blurry. Now, the weird bit. A Bavarian monk's diary describes the emperor's new lenses hoax in 1317. Con artists sold hollow frames to nobles, empty rims promising invisible clarity. Victims pretended to see better rather than admit being duped. Early adopters, OG hypebeasts. Picture 1,000 workshops, each failing in unique ways. One artisan's journal moans about lenses that magnify only the left eye of houseflies. Another bemoans frames that fused to a customer's nose during summer heat. Progress smelled like singed eyebrow hair and broken glass. Ever peeled a patent-pending sticker off cheap readers? That hubris stretches back. A papal edict from 1291 banned unauthorized copying of vision aids. Right before 3 rival lensmiths fell into the same canal. Originality's overrated when profits loom. Tongue twister alert, skip ahead if you're drowsy. Guild masters enforced loyalty through rhymes. Grind the curve, guard the hearth, steal the secret, break thy heart. Apprentices chanted it while polishing imperfections, and probably snickered behind their masters' backs. Your blue light glasses. They owe debts to a forgotten Milanese alchemist who mixed ground cobalt into glass, not for eye strain, but to repel witches' gaze. Modern R&D departments inherit medieval hunches wrapped in lab coats. That light bulb moment, myth dies here. Spectacles emerged from a sludge of knockoffs, like 15th century clickbait. A Genoese merchant's pamphlet touted Armenian spyglasses for nocturnal reading. They were just smoked quartz, 5 stars for marketing. Dig through a Florence dump pit, shattered lenses outnumber intact ones 10 to 1. Each shard whispers, "We tried angling the curve, then the curve angled us." Innovations built on landfill. Modern optometrists preach the 20-20-20 rule. Medievals had their own version. Every 20 manuscript pages, pray 20 minutes, then barter 20 coins for better lenses. Efficiency meets desperation. Here's the kicker. We found 0 evidence of eureka. Cries in lens history. Just ledgers documenting incremental upgrades. A 0.5 millimeter curvature shift here, beeswax replacing hog fat there. Glory goes to the last adjuster, not the first attempt. So next time your prescription strengthens, thank the unnamed apprentices who squinted at their masters' workbenches. They're why you're not reading through a urine-filled fishbowl, probably. The acrid tang of molten glass bites your throat as you pump bellows in Prospero's workshop. 7 generations of lens grinders started here as cobblers. Your great-grandfather's leather patterns yellow on the wall, now used to trace lens molds. Family trades pivot faster than princely alliances when ducats dangle. Murano's monopolists never saw it coming. Their famed crystal required pristine sand from Syria. Yours uses river silt and whispered shortcuts. By 1392, 16 former cobbler shops line your village square, each chimney spewing glass furnace smoke. Guild inspectors scoff until your Bachelli lenses outsell Venetian imports 3 to 1. Capitalism loves an underdog with cheaper labor. Here's how it worked. Melt down flawed beads meant for prayer rosaries. Recast the glass into serviceable magnifiers. Export taxes on jewelry lower than optical tools. Customs officers never check if a necklace has convenient hinged frames. Salvage meets ingenuity with a dash of fraud. Rumor says old Prospero spiked his glass mix with donkey urine for flexibility. Archaeologists found his workshop floor, and 5 centuries later, the stench remains legendary. His ledger lists a 1387 entry. 2 barrels night soil trade for Antwerp lenses. Whether he drank or crafted with it, history stays tactfully vague. Your calloused hands know the real secret. Shape trumps purity. Venetian glass shatters if you glare too hard, but your bubbly local silica bends light just enough. Scholars still dispute whether Gambello's wealth came from superior technique or just underreporting bead sales to tax collectors. Follow the money, assuming the records weren't accidentally melted. Town festivals tell the tale through drunk ballads. Oh, we cinched the buckles, then we duped the suckers. Children act OUT, Chinese letter, grinding lenses with cobblers' hammers. Tourists lap it up, missing the irony that those quaint village crafts once bankrolled a smuggling empire. The church took notice eventually. A 1413 decree banned adulterated glass masquerading as holy instruments. Your elders responded by gifting the local monastery 12 pairs of fine Venetian spectacles. Coincidentally, the bishop's sermon next Sunday praised divinely inspired local industries. Corruption always had 20/20 vision. Production quotas ruled your days. Boys graduated from stitching soles to polishing lenses by 12 girls sorted glass by hue and clarity. Too green, toss it in the bead bin for Flanders. Efficiency was brutal, but so was starvation. You learned to spot a lens fracture by its whistle against the grinding wheel. War shuffled the deck. When Milanese troops sacked the Po Valley in 1447, they ignored your humble bead-making huts. Your mayor may have hinted rival villages stored more gold. Survival favors the flexible and the morally flexible. Legacy lingers in odd places. Modern optometries, Vauchel curve for lens grinding. Stolen from Margarita Beckel's 1463 diary, the guild erased her name after she eloped with a rival son. Turns out trade secrets included lost love letters between grinding templates. Ever used progressive lenses? Thank the starvation winter of 1450. When charcoal ran out, desperate smelters blended oak ash and pine resin. The warped glass created accidental multifocal zones. Clients complained of headaches, but couldn't stop buying the all-distance novelty. Gambello's 1492 tax returns survive meticulous records of bead sales and curious gaps between shipments. His will left 10 gold florins and my second best grinding lathe to the town, but zero mention of the ruby necklace found hidden in his furnace brickwork. Some secrets stay buried until the mortar crumbles. The decline came swiftly. Portuguese traders undercut your prices. German glassmakers perfected clear crystal. And suddenly, everyone wanted proper spectacles. Your grandfather switched back to shoes, this time with magnifying loupes for aging clients. Adapt or perish, but never admit defeat. You kneel to inspect a half-buried crucible shard behind the bakery, one last twisted relic of prosperity. The sand still glints faintly green, or is that donkey urine residue? Progress leaves odd fossils. Modern tour guides tout your town as the birthplace of optical innovation. They don't mention the caveat. Innovation here smelled like burnt leather and tax evasion. But hey, history buffs prefer pretty lies over sweaty truths. You smile, then adjust your Beckelli replica TM glasses and keep sweeping. Your broom halts mid-sweep as a scrap of Persian script flutters from the bakery wall. Ibn al-Haytham's Book of Optics hides behind crumbling plaster. Damascus-born diagrams show light bending through curved crystal. Same principles shaping the lens in your pocket. Knowledge migrates faster than sand in a tradesman's boots. Florentine workshops stole shamelessly. Your master paid 3 extra florins for Arabic manuscripts, accidentally looted from crusader ships. Translators mumble through half-understood terms. Albeit LMU letter 1E93 LIM becomes camera obscura through linguistic acrobatics. Progress thrives on pinched ideas. Here's the mainstream bit. Al-Haytham's 11th century light studies reached Europe via Jewish scholars in Toledo. Without their translations, your spectacles might stayed reading stones, gathering dust on monastery shelves. Gratitude comes cheap. Most translators died, unnamed, in pestilence wards. Your grinding wheel spins with new purpose after studying those stolen diagrams. Sharper curves, precise angles matching celestial calculations. Suddenly lenses reveal lunar craters, not just blurred text. A Venice-bound merchant squints through your prototype. Like Allah himself polished this glass. He pays in Byzantine gold, no questions asked. Quirky twist. Moorish opticians allegedly tested lenses by focusing sunlight onto love poems etched in clay. If the words burned away, the curvature was true. Poetic quality, irrelevant. Accuracy measured in scorched verses. Trade caravans become idea pipelines. A Baghdad glassmaker's trick, stirring molten sand with dried lionfish spines to reduce bubbles, saves your workshop half its fuel costs. You hide the formula inside a fake Hail Mary, scribbled where guild spies won't look. Hagia Sophia's colored mosaics inspire your breakthrough. Byzantine greens and golds filter through layered glass, easing eye strain better than clear crystal. Clients swear they think clearer under emerald-tinted lenses. Placebo effect, maybe, but placebo pays the same as physics. Historians still argue whether Fibonacci's number sequence spread east for accounting, or hitched rides with lens traders smuggling optical formulas. Check his Liber Abbasid. That rabbit problem smells like a cover for illicit decimal calculations. Sicily becomes the unwitting middleman. Arab Norman palaces overflow with glass blurs who volunteer their skills after midnight abduction raids. Their forced innovations, top tier. Their holiday requests, stubbornly ignored. You test a lens recipe scrawled on camel hide, heated sand mixed with crushed date seeds. The result? Glass that won't fog in humid air. Perfect for spice traders, sweating through monsoon ports, and inquisitors needing clear vision in dungeons. Genoese pirates intercept a shipment, only to demand apprenticeship instead of ransom. Their captain's nearsightedness trumps greed. You barter 10 pairs of spectacles for safe passage, plus a handwritten guide to lens maintenance. The church's new Heavenly Spheres sermon borrows heavily from Al-Kindi's rays of vision theory. Same priests who burned his books last decade now preach his optics as divine truth. Heresy becomes gospel when tithes depend on it. Your crowning theft, reproducing the Baghdad house of wisdom's star maps on lens polishing discs. Each concentric circle corrects astigmatism, while secretly aligning with Orion's belt. Monk astronomers pay triple for these devotion aids. A drunk glass blur spills the real story. Venetian spies infiltrated Cairo's workshops. By posing as relic hunters, they returned with blueprints stuffed inside fake saint bones. Whether the saints approved, nobody asked. Legacy tastes bittersweet. Those improved spectacles sharpen scholars' eyes, letting them decipher anti-Arabic rhetoric in freshly translated texts. Progress giveth clarity and taketh away cultural credit. Your final masterpiece rests in its case, a double convex lens etched with Quranic geometry on one side, Gregorian chants on the other, interfaith focus for divided times. The Pope's envoy confiscates it as blasphemy, then privately orders 6 more for his aging cardinals. Dust motes dance in the workshop's last light, arabesques of inherited knowledge. Somewhere between stolen diagrams and borrowed techniques, humanity learned to see itself more clearly. You pocket a shard of Persian glass and resume sweeping. Glass grit stings your palms as Venetian shipments vanish. War galleys burn cedar barrels of soda ash meant for your workshop. You stare at empty shelves once lined with Levantan silica, now just splintered wood echoing Ottoman siege chants. Desperation fuels ingenuity, or what scholars politely call medieval MacGyver mode. Here's the textbook nugget. The 1489 Venetian-Ottoman War strangled the Mediterranean glass trade cold. No ash, no clarity. Your lens grinder sits idle until a midnight epiphany. Crush quartz pebbles from the riverbed mix with pine resin heated over dung fires. The result, lenses cloudy as tavern ale, but they bend light. Your apprentice munches fried locusts, crunching through a brainstorm. What if we boil parchment, glue into the resin? Smooths the bubbles. It works, sort of. Clients complain their improved vision reveals too many wrinkles on my wife. Demand grows anyway. Quirky sidebar. Bavarian monks allegedly used mashed trout eyes as lens polish during the shortage. Did it help? Chroniclers note a surge in cats loitering outside monastery kitchens. Coincidence? Fishy at best. Siege engineers repurpose your failed lenses as fire starters, concentrating sunlight to ignite Ottoman tents. They return charred scraps of enemy banners as payment. You stitch them into workshop curtains, a combustible reminder of optical versatility. Historians still argue whether material scarcity birthed superior lenses or just desperation patents. Check excavation sites, those wartime quartz resin specials crumble faster than a spy's alibi, but the adjustable frame designed during the crisis, still in use 500 years later. Black market thrives. A one-eyed smuggler offers Sardinian obsidian if you'll forge papal seals for his cargo manifest. The deal stinks worse than curring resin, but obsidian grinds into razor-sharp lenses. You toss the manifests into the hearth. Ashes make decent glass clarifiers. Innovation by idiocy. A drunk mercenary mistakes your lens inventory for battlefield caltrops until he peers through one. His laughter sharpens into awe. I can count the fleas on my hound from here. Crossbow sights get upgraded. Your profits fund a new chimney. Resourcefulness spreads. The butcher's wife trades ox hoof shavings for your worst lens. Turns out boiled hooves stabilize resin. You test it during a winter frost. No cracking. By spring, every lens case smells like a tannery. Clients adapt. A novitiate monk arrives pleading for lenses. Scriptorium candles rationed due to battles. You gift him warped quartz discs. He returns weeks later with a revelation. They magnify under parchment. We're copying texts through the vellum now. Knowledge preservation turned literally inside out. Your masterpiece, a composite lens, crushed quartz core, fish glue layers, oxhoof resin coating. It warps by noon, but for 3 glorious morning hours, users swear they see angels in the grain of oak beams. Placebo's a hell of a drug. Final shipment day arrives. Swiss mercenaries drag a looted Ottoman glassmaking cart, demanding those fancy eye rocks as payment. You trade 10 resin lenses for their Hall Charlemagne's bust, smashed to silica dust in a crate. Artistry reduced to ingredient, progress fed by its own tail. As the siege lifts, Venetian glass floods back, cheaper than your jury-rigged materials. Clients ditch clouded quartz for familiar clarity. You keep one war-era lens on your workbench, a foggy testament to makeshift genius. The next famine of resources waits, and you'll be ready with fish, glue, and foolishness. Quartz resin lenses still line your workshop shelves, overshadowed now by Venetian glasses' triumphant return. But those gritty wartime improvisations planted seeds, and here's the sprout. Pocket-sized books of hours, smaller than your palm. You squint at the latest commission, a psalter so tiny, its letters resemble ant trails. Without your spectacles, it's useless, but with them, suddenly scripture fits in a pilgrim's satchel. Mainstream fact incoming. These portable prayer books explode among wealthy burghers after 1450. Each page flaunts doodled monsters in margins, medieval rage comics mocking clerical austerity. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales gets a miniature edition. Someone scribbles, "Here Begineth th drama," on page 1. Your latest spectacles perch wire-framed and nimble. No more nose-pinching bone contraptions. A merchant tests them while pacing, reads aloud without tripping over cobblestones. "Freedom," he crows. You resist pointing out his looming collision with a donkey cart. Quirky detour. Monks complain their new spectacles smear iron gall ink, nose oil transfers from frames to fingertips. Solution: grease-resistant linseed varnish. And the first recorded case of readers yelling, "Don't touch my glasses." Historians still argue whether mobile reading democratized knowledge or just let Nobles hoard ideas in jeweled lockets. Evidence leans both ways. Peasant ballads mention street preachers clutching tiny Bibles. But guilds restrict lens sales to those of approved moral character. Spoiler: they mean rich guys. You invent the prototype bookstrap, leather bands securing spectacles to traveling packs. Feedback's brutal. Looks like a saddle for mice, scoffs a scribe. Yet pilgrims adopt it within weeks, paired with your latest innovation. A cowhorn case, preventing lens fog in rainy forests. Clergy panic. A bishop rants that pocket Bibles let laity parse God's word unsupervised. His solution: demand all miniature scriptures include his commentary in unreadable microscopic script. You sell him magnifying lenses at triple the cost. Domestic drama unfolds. Wives stash romances in bread baskets. Husbands hide gambling debts folded into psalm books. A noblewoman requests emerald lenses to match my devotion. They tint the world green until she complains Genesis now looks unhealthily mossy. Crafting challenges multiply. Gold leaf illuminations flake off tiny pages until you suggest using chick feather quills trimmed to needle points. The resulting St. Jerome portrait fits in a walnut shell. His lion sidekicks the size of a fleck of pepper. War's irony strikes. Soldiers trading loot for your spectacles discover bifocal benefits. Scanning horizons and reading ransom demands mid-battlefield. A mercenary group commissions lenses with adjustable focus, operated by a thumb lever you dub the clairvoyant style. Late-night workshop experiments yield the first wearable reading light, a candle clamped to a headband. It lasts exactly 7 minutes before singeing your apprentice's eyebrows off. Back to drawing board and aloe salve. Urban legends bloom. A Strasbourg chronicle claims 2 scholars read themselves blind, racing through Aristotle under moonlight. But it's probably just alehouse propaganda. The real threat: carriage rides transforming into nausea fests as nobles attempt mobile study. Your magnum opus arrives, a travel set with folding spectacles, a thumb Bible, and a Weyler lamp small enough to balance on a psalter. Review: portable, but the lamp attracts moths, grumbles a customer. You suggest hiring a frog, natural pest control. Legacies already brewing. A Florentine merchant sketches plans for reading rooms on wheels, basically ox carts with bookshelves. It fails after the first speed bump scatters Aesop's fables across a wheat field. Progress isn't pretty. As dusk filters through your resin-coated windows, you polish lenses to a finish, reflecting both candle flames and possibilities. Knowledge once chained to lecterns now skips through markets, hides in apron pockets, escapes castle walls. Tomorrow's scholars will debate whether movable type or mobile vision sparked revolution. But tonight, you pocket a dime-sized Augustine text and step into starlight words, traveling wherever your feet wander. Your fingers trace the hinge of 14th century frames in a climate-controlled museum case. Modern glass reflects your phone's glow against their tarnished silver. These Bologna-made relics still carry nose pad indentations from some long-dead scholar, his skeletal grip preserved in oxidized metal. Across the room, a toddler squints at her first pair of plastic eyeglasses, pink cat ears framing lenses that correct an inheritance nobody chose. Mainstream truth. Every optical lab today uses the same basic lens shape, pioneered in 1286 Venetian workshops. That convex curve now beams from LASIK machines, SpaceX visors, even Mars rover cameras. But here's the kicker, your smartphone screen. Its pixel density was calculated using equations from medieval Arabic opticians, tweaking magnifiers for silk thread inspections. Quirk alert. Archaeologists recently found spectacles entombed with a 15th century French lawyer stacked 3 pairs high on his skeleton's face. Theory. He hoped to out-argue St. Peter at the pearly gates by citing multiple heavenly legal codes simultaneously. You adjust your own frames, anti-glare coated, blue light filtered, while standing inches from their primordial ancestor. Same function, same little smudge on the left lens you've been avoiding. A museum guard sneezes, and you instinctively grab your glasses like they'll vanish into history. Old habits. Historians still argue whether eyeglasses extended medieval lifespans or just made old age bearable. Records show monks gained decades of productive scribe work, but also note a surge in complaints about youthful arrogance from clear-eyed novices. Rain taps the skylight as you exit, your lenses fleck with water droplets. Somewhere in Florence, a 16th century artisan once cursed similar stains while soldering wire rims. Innovations, just a long chain of people muttering, "There's got to be a better way," across 8 centuries. The gift shop hawks replica monocles next to smartphone magnifiers. A teenager tries VR goggles, their lenses projecting photons where cowhorn cases once held hand-ground glass. You pocket a pamphlet titled "From Scrolls to Screens," printed in 8-point font that give your 1300s counterpart an aneurysm. Night falls on your walk home. Streetlights blob into halos through fogged specks, a universal experience shared with every myopic soul since the Middle Ages. You wipe them on your shirt like countless tradesmen did while squinting at guild ledgers, or like that bishop who dropped his during the 1382 Synod of London and spent 40 minutes cursing under a pew. Home in your kitchen, you microwave leftovers beside an open optics textbook. The chapter on laser, eye surgery diagrams, corneas, with precision those bone frame monks would have called heretical. Yet when steam fogs your glasses, you're momentarily back in a 14th century scriptorium, breath-clouding lenses as parchment crackles and candle wax pools. Your cat bats at your discarded frames, just as medieval mice gnawed on leather cases. Evolution's circular. You fall asleep knowing tomorrow's lenses will be thinner, smarter, yarn-enabled, but still perched on that same precarious bridge of flesh and bone. The greatest upgrade remains unchanged, finally seeing what's been there all along. Your palms rest against the cool glass case, its modern surface holding 700-year-old secrets. Tarnished silver frames whisper of scholars' long dust, their nosepad grooves now home to museum air and your breath fog. Across the room, a child's plastic glasses shine candy pink. Today's answer to problems medieval minds carved from cattle horn and wire. You never realized your phone's retina display owes its math to 13th century opticians, that every LASIK laser traces back to Venetian glassblowers, deformed apprenticeships. Even Mars rovers peer through lens, curves first sketched on parchment, edges smoothed by Saharan sandstorms and monastery candle flame. Rain mists the exit doors as you step outside, streetlights blooming into firefly halos through wet lenses. How many souls have blinked at this same blurry glow? The clerk squinting over 14th century tax records, the nun threading needles by dawn's gray light, the lawyer buried with 3 pairs of spectacles clutched to his ribs. Your kitchen's LED bulbs bathe last night's teacup in sterile light, so unlike the honey-toned glow that haunted monks' manuscript pages. Steam rises, your lenses fog, and for one suspended moment, you're breathing with those long-ago craftsmen, their calloused fingers smearing goose grease on lenses as reed pens scratch toward immortality. The cat nudges your abandoned frames, a game played across centuries by creatures who will never need glasses. Tomorrow's augmented reality lenses already hum in cleanroom factories, silicon and algorithms replacing ground glass. But when you finally slide under covers, spectacles folded on the nightstand, you're still performing the same careful ritual as that 1382 bishop who cursed dropped frames beneath crooked pews. Darkness comes soft as owl feathers. Somewhere beyond sleep, hands you'll never meet still polish lenses, firelight catching in imperfections that map the stars. The bridge of your nose remembers every ancestor who balanced wood, bone, plastic against flesh. They smile through the centuries as your breath slows, their gift carried forward in every clear-eyed dawn.